Isabelle announced that she was wearing new pants today, so Leo just pursed his lips and decided to respect her choice. But as he led her on a walk around the athletic track, she couldn't stop herself from glancing toward the small grove of trees. Leo noticed, on their fourth lap, he squeezed her hand and asked tentatively, "Feel like a little lip service? MHM." And so, under the cover of a dark and windy night, Leo once again led his little neighbor into the moral gray zone. When they left the track half an hour later, Isabelle kept her head down, trailing shyly behind him, her face flushed a deep crimson. As he held her hand, she couldn't resist tracing little circles on his palm, whispering under her breath, "You're a bad person, Leo. Now I have to do laundry again." Huh. Leo looked back at her, confused. He still had no idea what any of this had to do with her pants. All he knew was that his little neighbor had absolutely zero resistance to his temptations. It was far too easy to lure her into the woods. That evening, in dorm room 311, Haley Xia and the others kept glancing curiously at the bathroom. Zoe Chong whispered, "Haley, what's up with Isabelle these last couple of days? She's been spending forever in the bathroom, every night. Sounds like she's washing something." I don't know. I've been too busy binge-watching my K-dramas," Haley murmured, her mind racing. "This is a new development. Did she and Leo reach some new milestone I don't know about? This is unacceptable. I need to get the details tomorrow. I can't miss out on a single crumb of this ship." A while later, just as Zoe, Haley, and Jessie Chow were all glued to their desks, captivated by the latest episode of their show, the bathroom door creaked open. Isabelle cautiously poked her head out. Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, she scurried out, clutching a small pair of pink panties, and quickly hung them on the drying rack. Then, with a perfectly composed expression, she pulled up a chair and sat down coolly beside Haley and the others, as if nothing had happened. No one noticed the new, damp addition to the drying rack. Back in the private room at the restaurant, after Leo left, Sean Xiao and the others sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Quinn Fan broke the quiet with a sigh. "Hey Sean, don't take it too hard. I already explained why I voted with Leo. It's better to get a result than to stay deadlocked. Don't let it get to you. This is just business. Disagreements are normal. It just means everyone is passionate about the studio and wants to see it succeed." Quinn stood up and walked over to Sean, patting his shoulder comfortingly. "If you guys aren't in a hurry, you can stay a bit longer. I gotta get back to the dorm. I have a gaming tournament with my roommates tonight." With that, he grabbed his things and left. Donrin stood up next, patting Sean's other shoulder. "Boss, you know I've got your back. But what's done is done, so don't dwell on it. If Leo's strategy causes problems down the line, I'll be right there with you to fix it. I gotta run to the optometrist to pick up my new glasses. They've been ready for a few days." After Don left, only Ruby Yu and Sean remained. Ruby opened her mouth to speak several times, but stopped when she saw the complex expression on Sean's face. She finally just shook her head and said softly, "Sean, Quinn, and Don are gone. We should go to—" Sean didn't answer right away. After another long silence, his voice came out raspy. "Ruby, before today, did you have any idea that Leo was such a dominant personality?" Ruby shook her head. "My read on him was the same as yours. He's always so easygoing at the studio, always joking around with everyone. I never would have guessed he could be this forceful." "Me neither." Sean sighed heavily. "If I'd known he would be like this, I would have thought twice about giving him the controlling shares and a veto power. In the end, it was my own arrogance. Once I found out he was just a freshman, I didn't take him seriously. I just thought he was a bold kid with a good eye." "Yeah, who could have known?" Ruby said with a wry smile. After a moment, Sean slowly rose from his chair, rubbing his temples. "I remember you specifically warned me, but I never thought Leo had any real ambition. Looks like I completely misjudged him." He sighed again. "Well, like Quinn and Don said, it's over now. Nothing to do but follow the plan Leo laid out." Deciding not to dwell on it any longer, he led Ruby out, and they drove back to CPI. After that night's vote determined the new direction for Starfall Studios, things settled down. The fall break came and went, and time seemed to accelerate. For the next month, Leo's life fell into a simple rhythm: classes, the studio, and exchanging lip service with his little neighbor. The only new development was the collection of hickeys blooming on his neck. When Haley Xia saw them, her eyes turned into pink hearts, and she nearly passed out from the sheer wholesomeness of her ship's sailing. As for the studio, Leo had delivered the complete business plan 3 days after the vote. The entire operation moved to a new office space, a 20-minute drive from CPI, and began developing according to his roadmap. The second and third channels were successfully launched. The studio's revenue certainly increased, But with more channels came higher operating costs. More importantly, just as Leo had feared, the short-form video landscape moved at lightning speed. The hype around their main channel, its starfall, began to fade. Their second channel, in the same niche, failed to produce a single video that broke 5 million views. It was lukewarm at best. In stark contrast, the third channel, which pioneered a new vertical, went viral. In just 1 month, it produced 3 videos with over 5 million views each, and its follower count was rapidly approaching 2 million. Today was the last day of November. The 4 guys from room 415 entered their 8 a.m. lecture, rubbing their hands together against the cold. A moment later, Isabelle and her friends came in through the back door. Leo cleared his throat, and Rex Gao, sitting beside him, reluctantly got up. "Damn it, Leo, you dog," Rex muttered as he left. "Am I just your personal seat warmer now? I'll give you my parking spot after class." Rex's face instantly lit up. "Hey man, what are friends for? Happy to keep it warm for you. Call me anytime you need the seat warmer service. It's no trouble at all." He then cheerfully moved to the row behind them. A few weeks ago, Rex would have scoffed at the offer. But now it was the end of the month, and as a proud member of the Paycheck to Paycheck Club, he had to think twice about a $5 breakfast, let alone a $35 daily parking fee. Even a rich kid has his lean days. As Rex moved, Isabelle sat down with her signature aloof expression. Leo patted his coat pocket. "Here," he said. "It's cold. Put your hand in my pocket to warm up." "MHM." Isabelle immediately slid her icy hand into his pocket. A wave of warmth washed over her, and her eyes lit up with pure delight. She looked like a big orange cat that had gotten lost in the cold and finally found its way back to the fireplace. Her expression was still cool and detached, but there was an adorable dopiness about her. Leo couldn't resist pinching her cheek. She stuck her tongue out at him playfully in protest. But then, she thought about all her past winters compared to this one, and her expression softened into one of pure tenderness. She blinked at him, saying nothing, just watching him quietly. After a long moment, she whispered, almost to herself, "I really like Leo." By the time classes ended for the day, it was already 6 in the evening. It was also a Friday, and Leo was about to ask Isabelle out to dinner. Before he could, Haley Xia chimed in with a grin. "Leo, mind if I borrow your little wifey tonight?" "Huh." Seeing Leo's confusion, Isabelle explained in a low voice. "Haley said there's a great hot spring at Willow Creek Springs. We were planning on going." "Okay. Is Lester driving you guys?" "Yeah." Hearing that, Leo decided against asking her to dinner. Tomorrow is Saturday, so they could just go then. He said his goodbyes to Isabelle and her friends and headed back to his dorm. But not long after he got back, an idea struck him. He pulled out his phone and called Mark Jean. "Mark, you should be getting off work soon, right? If you're free tonight, let me buy you dinner." "Sure," Mark replied. "I don't have any plans tonight." A short while later, Leo was driving to Starfall's new office. At 7, he picked Mark up. During work hours, Mark, like everyone else, called Leo Mr. Yeager, but after hours, they were on much more casual terms. Once they were seated at the restaurant, Mark let out a sigh. "Leo, you're seriously something else. I've been grinding away in Crestview for years since graduation and still haven't been able to buy my own car. You're not even done with your first semester of college, and you're already driving a $30,000 car. The comparison is just brutal." "Come on, Mark, it's after hours. Let's drop the formalities," Leo said. "I know you were making good money at your old company, probably 7 or 8 grand a month before commissions and bonuses. You could have bought a car if you'd wanted to. It's not as dramatic as you make it sound." To his surprise, Mark just gave a bitter smile. "It's not an exaggeration. You know, my ex and I got together in college. She always had expensive taste, and after graduation, she never found a steady job. So, I was basically supporting both of us. After our monthly expenses, whatever I earned went to her makeup and luxury goods. I never managed to save anything." He took a sip of his drink and continued. "Looking back, maybe that's why she cheated on me. Because I never bought a car, never saved up enough for a down payment on a house." Seeing Mark's somber mood, Leo decided to change the subject. He cleared his throat. "Hey, let's not talk about that. Actually, there was something I wanted to talk to you about tonight." "Oh yeah? Spit it out. You know you can tell me anything." Leo hesitated for a second before getting straight to the point. "So, as you know, the studio's 3 main channels are stable now. We're already planning the next batch of channels, 5 new ones, to be exact. But with our current staff, the workload for editing and managing 5 more channels is just too much. If we start recruiting now, the whole process of posting ads, screening applications, and interviewing will take at least 2 weeks. So I was thinking, since you used to work at a social media company, you must know a lot of people in the industry. I was wondering if you could." He trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Mark wasn't stupid. He immediately picked up where Leo left off. You want me to ask them if they're willing to jump ship? Exactly, Leo admitted freely. Of course, he didn't mention the most important part. It wasn't just about saving time. He wanted to use Mark to recruit a team of people who would be loyal to him. Building his own faction within the company might not seem necessary now, but Leo felt it was crucial. The vote with Sean and the others a month ago had been a wake-up call. His veto power wasn't enough. If the other partners united against him, he could easily be pushed out. He'd only won that vote because they hadn't seen it coming. Next time, he might not be so lucky. Mark didn't refuse. All right, I'll ask around when I get home tonight. But to be honest, Leo, I doubt anyone will be willing to move. Compared to my old company, Starfall is still pretty small scale. I know, but you've been at Starfall for almost 2 months, Mark. You know our potential. And more importantly, I can offer them double their current salary. Also, you would be the team lead for this new group. Mark's eyebrows shot up. A team lead. The base salary wouldn't change much, but the commission would be a hell of a lot higher. His mind was made up. All right, with that offer, I'll go all in. Great. By the time Leo and Mark finished dinner, it was past 9. Since Mark had been drinking, Leo offered to drive him home. But as soon as Mark got in the car, he rubbed his nose and mumbled, "Hey, Leo, can you drop me off at the Golden Touch Spa and Lounge?" What? Leo's eyes went wide as he stared at him in shock. Mark looked away sheepishly. Cough, adult stuff. Half an hour later, Leo pulled up in front of the Golden Touch. Mark unbuckled his seatbelt and got out. All right, Leo, I'm heading in. I'll get on what you asked about as soon as possible. Drive safe. Right. Mark, you be safe too, Leo said awkwardly, then drove back toward CPI. Just as he was approaching the campus entrance, he got a text for his little neighbor. Leo, I'm almost back at school. I want to see you. He quickly typed back. Okay, I'm almost at the gate too. I'll wait for you there. He pulled over by the entrance, but didn't see Lester's Maybach yet. He decided to kill time by scrolling through TikTok. Just as he put the car in park, he noticed a small, exquisitely wrapped square box on the passenger seat. Must be Mark's. He picked up the small package, and in the next second, his face flushed beet red. Holy crap, it's a baby stopper. Before he could even process it, there was a knock on his window. Startled, he turned his head. Standing right beside his car, somehow, was Isabelle. Seeing Isabelle standing outside his car, Leo's heart skipped a beat. In a panic, he shoved the small box into his pocket. Then, fumbling, he rolled down the window, trying his best to look natural. Hey, Lester sure drives fast, huh? Ha ha ha. Leo's voice trembled slightly, and he couldn't bring himself to look her in the eye. Isabelle tilted her head, a hint of confusion in her eyes. What's wrong with you? And nothing, Leo stammered, waving his hand dismissively while silently praying she hadn't seen anything. She looked at him, finding his behavior even stranger, but didn't press the issue. She pursed her lips and said in her cool tone, "Take me to get something good to eat. I haven't had dinner yet." Leo knew that by good stuff, she meant the food trucks that lined the street next to campus. He composed himself, got out of the car, and asked, "You went to the hot springs with Haley and the others and didn't eat?" "They ate, but I wanted to eat with you." His heart warmed. He nodded, took her slightly cold hand, and smiled. "All right, it's Friday, so the food trucks should still be open. Let's go." MHM. Isabelle gave him a bright-eyed look, letting him lead her toward the row of food trucks. On the way, Leo held her hand with one hand and kept the other firmly in his pocket. He scanned the street for an opportunity to discreetly toss the offending object, but there wasn't a single trash can in sight. He couldn't just throw it on the ground. What if she saw? That would be impossible to explain. By the time they reached the food trucks, he still hadn't found a place to get rid of it. Damn it, he cursed internally. Isn't Crestview supposed to be some award-winning city? How can there not be a single trash can on this entire street? What's the mayor's complaint hotline? The moment they entered the bustling area, Isabelle transformed into a fish back in water, her eyes full of excitement. She looked left and right at the steaming stalls, a small smile playing on her lips, looking for all the world like a ditzy anime heroine about to drool. Seeing her so happy, Leo's tension eased a bit. He held her hand tightly, afraid of losing her in the crowd. "What do you want to eat?" Her gaze drifted from stall to stall, before landing on one selling grilled squid. She narrowed her eyes and pointed. "Those skewers look good." "All right." Leo led her to the stall. "Hey, 10 grilled squid skewers, please." "You got it," the owner replied. But Isabelle tugged on Leo's arm, pouting. "I want 20, she whispered. "I already ate. I can't eat that much this time," Leo said with a wry smile. Every time he brought her here, She would order a mountain of food from every stall she liked, but she could never finish it all. He always ended up being the human garbage disposal. Tonight, having already had dinner with Mark, he really couldn't eat much more. If they bought that much, it would just go to waste. Oh wait, I could bring the leftovers back for Rex and the guys. Almost forgot. Little Rex is probably in the dorm gnawing on dry ramen right now, he thought. After buying the squid, Isabelle plucked them from the bag one by one as they walked. They'd only gone a few steps when she stopped again, looking back at him with pleading eyes. Leo, I want a noodle bowl too. You got it. Leo bought her a noodle bowl without hesitation. And so they continued, eating their way through the street. Before they even reached the end, Leo's hands were full of various snacks, grilled squid, a noodle bowl, takoyaki, fried noodles, spiral fries. Even though he had deliberately ordered single portions, Isabelle wanted one of everything she saw. In the end, there was still a lot left over. Leo looked at the pile of half-eaten food in his hands and sighed. That's enough. No more. You've already had a bite of all of these, so I can't really give the leftovers to Rex and the guys. Isabelle lifted her chin coolly. You're not allowed to give it to anyone else. Only you can eat it. Are you trying to make me explode? Leo sighed dramatically. But, abiding by the sacred principle of never wasting food, he dutifully finished off everything she had left. At the end of the food truck street, the stalls transitioned to vendors selling hair clips, string lights, handmade bracelets, and other trinkets. And of course, there was the obligatory DIY cocktail stand that had recently gone viral on TikTok. Leo was about to lead Isabelle through the exit and back to campus, but it was getting late, and many of the vendors were trying to make a few last-minute sales. As they passed a handbag stall, the middle-aged owner's eyes lit up, and he immediately approached them. Hey, beautiful, come take a look at these bags. You have such great style. A new bag would look amazing on you. The man stood in front of Isabelle, smiling as he pitched his wares. Isabelle was a bit taken aback. Then the owner spotted Leo. Oh, is this your boyfriend? You two are a perfect match. I've been selling bags here for years, and I've never seen a couple as good-looking as you two. And look at you. He must adore you, right? It doesn't matter if you buy a bag or not. I just wish you two a long and happy life together. With looks like yours, I can't even imagine how gorgeous your babies would be. Hearing that last line, Leo's pupils contracted. Oh no, he's using Jedi mind tricks. Leo knew that the moment anyone mentioned how perfect he and Isabelle were together, she would instantly lose all critical thinking and classify the person as a good person. Just as he predicted, upon hearing the owner's words, Isabelle's cool expression melted into one of pure delight. This man is a good person, she thought. It must be so hard for him, running a stall out here in the cold. I should buy everything. She narrowed her eyes, looking at the man's stall, her mouth slightly agape, about to speak. But Leo, hearing her thoughts, paled and quickly cut her off. Ahem, we'll just take one. Oh, Isabelle said, her spell broken. She just nodded twice. Leo breathed a sigh of relief. That was close. If he'd let her speak, she would have bought out the man's entire inventory tonight. The owner beamed. Come, beautiful, take your pick. Try one on. I guarantee you'll look super-duper pretty. Leo rolled his eyes. This damn bag salesman. Not only does he use mind tricks on my girl, he uses cutesy talk too. So, icky-wicky. In the end, Isabelle chose a brown bag, and Leo paid the $80. Afterward, she slung her new purchase over her shoulder, and they walked out of the food truck park, a satisfied smile on her face. The night air was a bit chilly, but her expression was one of pure contentment. Leo, this bag is so pretty, she said, gently stroking its surface, her eyes full of joy. Leo couldn't help but smile at her happiness. It was only $80. It's a far cry from the $1,000 bags you usually buy. I don't know much about them, but I'm sure it can't compare. But this one is my favorite, Isabelle said, her eyes shining as she looked at him with earnest sincerity. A warmth spread through Leo's chest. He knew that, more than any expensive designer brand, she cherished this moment with him, this simple, pure happiness. In her eyes, this $80 bag held more meaning than all the others combined. They walked slowly along the street back toward CPI. Moonlight draped over them like a soft, silver veil. Every so often, Isabelle would glance down at her new bag, the smile never leaving her face. By 10 o'clock on a late November night in Crestview, the temperature had dropped considerably, and the campus paths were nearly deserted. As they neared her dormitory, Isabelle sidled up closer to Leo. She rubbed her hands together, then reached for his coat pocket. Leo smiled, not thinking anything of it. But in the next second, his smile froze. Wait, that pocket. It still has. His heart hammered against his ribs. His mind raced. He dropped the half-eaten bag of takoyaki he was still holding and clamped a hand over his pocket. Don't. But it was too late. Isabelle's hand was already inside. Her cool expression flickered with surprise, then shifted to confusion. She had clearly felt the object inside. Her movements froze, and the sudden tension on Leo's face only made her more curious. Her fingers closed around it, and she pulled it out. "What is this?" she asked, holding the small, square packet up and examining it with narrowed eyes. "Oh, God, no." Seeing her holding the evidence right in front of her face, Leo felt a wave of despair wash over him. In that split second, two possible escape plans flashed through his mind. Plan A: snatch the baby stopper from her, rip it open, pop it in his mouth, and blow a giant bubble. Tell her it's a new kind of bubble gum, the kind that makes huge bubbles. Plan B: deny everything. Play dumb. Act like he has no idea how it got in his pocket. Exclaim loudly, "Who the hell put this thing in my pocket?" He immediately vetoed Plan A. This wasn't a movie, and Isabelle wasn't an idiot. She could read. As for Plan B, he could already hear her deadpan response. "So you admit this is your pocket?" Damn it. This is some kind of twisted interrogation. Before Leo could say anything, Isabelle seemed to figure it out. Her expression froze, and a blush crept up her neck, spreading across her face with visible speed. Suddenly, she looked up at him, her voice small and wounded. "We can't today. I have to go back to my dorm." With that, she pursed her lips, handed the packet back to Leo, and turned, fleeing toward her dorm building. She ran in such a panic that she nearly tripped, giving Leo a heart attack. By the time he snapped out of his shock, she had vanished from sight. Leo stood there, stunned, still holding the instrument of his utter humiliation. He could feel his face burning. "I should have found a chance to throw it away when we were buying food," he muttered regretfully. "How could I forget it was still in my pocket?" He stood frozen for another long moment before finally shaking his head and slowly coming back to his senses. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. Later that night, back in his dorm, Leo lay in bed, tossing and turning. He couldn't get the image of Isabelle's shocked, blushing, and hurt expression out of his head, or the sight of her stumbling away in a panic. Meanwhile, in room 311, Isabelle's heart was still pounding. Her face was scorching hot as she replayed the scene in her mind, picturing the little packet she had pulled from Leo's pocket. Haley, fresh from her shower, saw Isabelle's flushed face and grinned. "Isabelle, your face is so red. What kind of trouble did you and Leo get into this time?" Isabelle shook her head frantically, her eyes wide and dazed. Her reaction only made Haley more suspicious. She leaned in closer, studying Isabelle's face. "You too. You didn't." Isabelle's face tightened in panic. "I didn't go to a hotel with Leo." Haley froze, her mind going completely blank. "Girl, I didn't even say you went to a hotel. How did my little poke bait out your ultimate move?" Saturday morning, before 9, Felix' phone and Nednyo were already up and out of the dorm. Since fall break, Felix and that Cece from Cust had grown closer, moving beyond just playing games together. Now, they were meeting up in person whenever they had free time. Though they weren't official yet, it was only a matter of time. As for Ned, he was up early because he'd been on a web novel binge. He'd burned through hundreds of dollars on subscriptions and, not wanting to ask his family for more money, had taken Leo's advice to find some day labor work. With him gone, Leo couldn't sleep anymore either. He washed up, sat down at his desk, and started working on his laptop. The occasional sound of his keyboard clacking and his pen scratching across a notebook was enough to wake the last remaining resident of room 415. Rexgow shot up in bed, pulled on his long johns, and climbed down from his bunk. "Come on, Leo, can't you guys give it a rest? I feel like everyone has their life together except me." Without looking up from the analytics of the studio's latest videos, Leo chuckled. "Isn't that a good thing? A rich kid like you is supposed to stand out in a dorm full of us common folk." "Oh, cut the crap. It's fine when we're joking around, but you guys know the deal. Sure, I'm a rich kid, but that's my parents' money, not mine. My allowance is only a little more than yours, and that's about it. The rest of the time, I'm just me. Now you're busy building an empire. Felix is in his romance movie era with Cece, and even Ned, the guy who lives in his bed reading novels, is out working. I'm the only one lying here like a zombie." Rex's voice was laced with genuine frustration. He reached for his pack of cigarettes, but it was empty, just like his purpose-filled days. The empty box only made him feel worse. Leo asked casually, "Didn't you take my advice and get that part-time job at the boba shop? Why'd you stop going?" At the mention of this, an embarrassed look crossed Rex's face. He rubbed his nose and stammered for a bit before finally admitting, it's a long story. Basically, my attempts to pick up girls were a little too obvious, and the manager found out. So she fired me. You're really something else, Leo said, finally turning away from his work to give Rex his full, unimpressed attention. Couldn't you have been a little more subtle? Hitting on one girl a day is one thing. Were you trying to flirt with every single customer? Rex grinned sheepishly. It's not my fault there's so many pretty girls out there. So, how many numbers did you get? A lot originally, but to avoid getting my account flagged for adding too many people, I made a new burner account just for it. When the manager found out, she not only fired me, but she also confiscated my pickup account. Leo was speechless, not wanting to dwell on his embarrassing failure. Rex cleared his throat and gestured toward Leo's laptop. Anyway, enough about that. Leo, I've noticed that lately, outside of your dates with Isabelle, you're even working on studio stuff during class. Is the workload really that heavy now? I remember when you started, you only went in occasionally. Leo didn't hide anything. The workload itself isn't that bad. I'm not one of the technical or on-camera people. I just handle operations and strategy, the big boss stuff, to put it pretentiously. He paused. Things are busy right now because the studio is trying to level up. We're in the middle of securing investments and building the framework to become a legitimate company, so I'm a bit more hands-on. Rex didn't look surprised. He just nodded, thinking for a moment before asking in a low voice, I figured you guys are getting bigger. If you're looking for investment, do you want my help? I can invest. Leo burst out laughing. He waved his hand. Come on, Rex. It's just the two of us in here. You don't have to put on a show. If you want to impress someone, you need an audience, and that audience isn't me. Rex's face immediately turned serious. Leo, I'm not kidding. I'm being completely serious. If your studio is raising funds, I can invest. Did you forget? My dad's a coal baron. Before I even came to college, he told me to make friends, and if I met anyone whose family was in business or who started their own successful venture, I could consider investing. Of course, there's a limit. He's not going to let me throw around huge amounts of cash. Seeing how earnest Rex was, Leo was taken aback. He had never imagined Rex would want to invest in Starfall Studios. He stared at his roommate for a few seconds, confirming he was serious, before his own expression hardened. He stroked his chin thoughtfully. Rex, are you an only child? Rex shook his head. Of course not. My parents hit it big right after they got married. With all that money, why would they stop at one kid? I have two older brothers. My middle brother is around my age, but stayed home for college. My oldest brother is 4 years older and works with my dad now. Hearing that, Leo immediately understood why Rex's father had given him the authority to invest while still in college. But he asked one more question, just to be sure. Did your dad let your oldest brother invest when he was in college, too? Definitely. Growing up, the three of us always got the exact same things. My parents never played favorites. A proud look crossed Rex's face as he said this. But hearing it, Leo felt a pang of sympathy for him. Finally, Leo just shook his head slightly. In that case, Rex, I can't let you invest in our studio. Why not? I've been watching you guys for a while. Starfall is blowing up. How long has it been? And you already have multiple channels with millions of followers. And you've already cleared over $1 million in revenue, right? If you get funding now, you're guaranteed to succeed. If my investment pays off, my dad will have to take me more seriously. Plus, we could work together. It's a win-win-win. Rex grew more and more excited as he spoke, as if he could already see his triumphant future. Seeing him like this, Leo didn't have the heart to tell him the potentially harsh truth. Leo stared at Rex for a long moment, carefully choosing his words. Rex, if you were an only child, I'd take your money without a second thought. But you're not. If you invest, and it fails, it will make you look incompetent in your father's eyes. One failed investment might not mean much on its own, but what if, right around the time you fail, your two brothers happen to make a brilliant investment or broker a great deal? Suddenly, your failure becomes glaring. If you were in your dad's shoes, what would you think of a youngest son like that? Leo put a hand on Rex's shoulder, his expression heavy with meaning. That's why I can't let you invest in us. You have to understand, we're in the internet video game. This industry can make you a millionaire overnight, but can also knock you off your pedestal just as fast. We're still just a small studio with almost no ability to absorb risk. If you invest and anything goes wrong, this will be counted as a failure, and everything I just described could happen. Rex's eyes widened in surprise. He opened his mouth to speak several times, but couldn't find the words. After a moment, his surprise shifted to a more complex emotion. He was silent for a long time before finally speaking again. Wow, Leo, I didn't realize you'd thought all this through for me. I know all that, and you didn't have to be so gentle about it. I'm well aware that the reason my dad gives us three boys the same resources is to see which of us is fit to take over his empire. He let out a short, humorless laugh. But I'm not as clueless as I look. I know that this stage, fundraising, is the hardest part for a studio your size. I've seen countless startup founders trying to court my dad, taking him to dinner, sending him gifts. Almost all the ones who failed to get funding ended up going bankrupt. He looked Leo straight in the eye. I really see you as a brother. That's why, even knowing the risk of failure, I wanted to help you out. I have to invest in something, so why not invest in a friend, right? Despite Rex's casual tone, Leo's serious expression didn't change. He shook his head again. Rex, precisely because you see me as a brother, I see you as a true friend. And as your friend, I can't lead you down a path with such an uncertain ending. The conversation is over. I can't accept your investment. At least, not at this stage. If you're determined, then wait until the studio is stable enough to manage risk. That way, even if you don't make a profit, you won't take a loss. Neither of them said anything after that, but a warmth spread through Leo's chest. Before this, his only close friends were Kevin and Miles. Today, Rex had shown his true colors. Of course, Leo wasn't entirely surprised. He had long suspected that Rex wasn't just the emotionally dense, girl-crazy rich kid he pretended to be. Leo had overheard him on the phone with his family many times. He was always respectful and genuinely concerned about how things were at home. More importantly, when they were out, Rex never let any of his friends be embarrassed. A truly clueless rich kid wouldn't pay attention to those details. As for why he acted that way, well, some people only show how cool they really are when it counts. Fine, have it your way. Reject my investment, Rex huffed, his bravado returning. But do you have any idea whose investment you just turned down? The investment of the third young master of the Gao family of West Virginia. He snorted haughtily and stomped off to the bathroom. As he washed up, he started belting out a rebel anthem. Silence will be misread, so attack is the best defense. Don't let them taint this purity. Put on someone else's mask, yeah? Listening to Rex's caterwauling, Leo just smiled and shook his head. A little while later, he packed his things and drove to the studio to handle the day's work. At 5 in the afternoon, Leo drove back to the CPI campus entrance. As he stopped at the red light at the intersection, he spotted Isabelle standing on the sidewalk. She was the picture of cool elegance in a trench coat, her hands tucked into her pockets. He pulled up to the curb, rolled down the window, and smiled. Get in, it's freezing out here. By the way, what do you want for dinner? Isabelle's eyes narrowed slightly. Let's eat at home. Huh, we're out of groceries at the Maplewood. We'd have to go to the supermarket first. Let's eat at the estate. Leo's breath hitched, and he instinctively clenched his legs. He knew what this meant. Whenever she suggested spending the night at the Thornton estate, it was a trap. Once he was there, he was never getting out. His devious little neighbor always found a way to trick him into staying over. Then, in the middle of the night, she would find some excuse to sneak into his bed. Over the past month, he'd heard them all. The last time, her excuse was that she'd had a sleepwalking problem since she was a child. Leo let out a cold laugh and decided to call her bluff. All right, spit it out. If I stay at your family's estate tonight, what's your excuse for sneaking into my bed this time? Isabelle lifted her chin, her tone perfectly matter-of-fact. No excuses tonight. I just want to sleep with you. Huh? No excuses tonight. I just want to sleep with you. Huh, all right then. So we're not even pretending anymore. Just coming right out with it. Seeing Isabelle's dead serious expression, Leo couldn't help but laugh. So, you go to Hot Spring one time and come back completely unfiltered? The act is over. She snorted, her tone still cool. Haley said a little contrast now, and then would make you like me more. Leave it to Haley, Leo thought. That girl is a masterclass wingwoman. Truly an artist at work. But he was secretly thrilled. Little does anyone know, I can hear her thoughts. So this isn't really contrast. She's just finally saying her inner monologue out loud. Just then, Leo saw the Maybach parked up ahead. Lester got out of the driver's seat and walked around the car, a troubled look on his face. Leo got out of his own car and turned to Isabelle. Is Lester coming back to the estate with us tonight? Yeah, she nodded. Together, they walked over to Lester, who greeted them with his usual warm smile. Mr. Yeager, are you heading to the estate tonight? We are, Isabelle replied cheerfully, her eyes soft as she looked at Leo. Lester's smile faltered. Mr. Yeager, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you to drive Miss Thornton home tonight. There seems to be something wrong with the car. I need to take it to the dealership to get it checked out. What? The car's broken? Leo was surprised. He figured a $100,000 luxury car would be immune to such problems. Seeing Lester's strained expression, Leo said, No problem, I can drive. In that case, you should ride with us to the estate, Lester. It's too cold to be standing out here. Just call Ron and Hugh to come take the car to the dealership. You can't be waiting out here in this weather. You'll catch a cold. Lester looked stunned. I couldn't possibly. There's nothing to it. Isabelle said you were coming to the estate anyway, so you might as well ride with us. It would take forever to get another car out here. Lester was clearly conflicted, but Leo didn't give him a chance to refuse, grabbing his arm and leading him toward his car. Isabelle added in a clear voice, Lester, let someone else handle the car. You're coming with us. Well, all right, miss. If you say so. With a direct order from his young miss, Lester couldn't object. He settled carefully into the back seat, looking completely overwhelmed. Mr. Yeager, this is really too much trouble for you. I feel quite out of place in your car. Leo leaned over and buckled Isabelle's seatbelt for her, then replied with a smile, Don't say that, Lester. Neither of us thinks of you as just a driver. We see you as a respected elder. We can't let you stand out in the cold all night. He's right, Lester. Listen to Leo. Isabelle chimed in, nodding emphatically. Those simple words made Lester's whole body jolt. His eyes welled up. He lifted the back of his hand to wipe his eyes, his voice trembling. Mr. Yeager, you're too kind. I never thought of myself as being that important. To think of me as an elder is just too much. He trailed off, unable to continue. Even after serving the Thornton family for so many years and being a trusted confidant to his young miss, he had never dared to imagine she would see him as family. When he actually heard those words from her, he couldn't hold back his tears. As Leo pulled the car into the night, Isabelle, sitting in the passenger seat clutching her new bag, chatted with him idly, occasionally taking pictures with her phone. Watching them, Lester's vision blurred. He was suddenly reminded of years ago, when Isabelle had just been born and he was still Catherine Lou's personal driver. He remembered one day, after Catherine had taken baby Isabelle for her vaccinations. Sitting in the back seat, Catherine stroked the infant in her arms with adoring eyes and said softly, Lester, when she's older, you should be her driver. I wouldn't trust anyone else with her. Lester wasn't much older than Catherine, but everyone in the Thornton household had gotten used to calling him Lester, and eventually Richard and Catherine had started doing it too. At the time, he hadn't thought much of it, just smiled and replied, Mrs. Thornton, it would be my honor to be your driver or the future Mrs. As long as you'll have me, I can stay with her until the day I can no longer drive. It's something to be proud of, isn't it? I've driven for you for so many years, and then I'll get to drive for your daughter. Catherine had smiled. Lester, I've never thought of you as a servant, and I'm sure Isabelle won't either. You'll be an elder who watches her grow up. Besides Richard and me, you'll probably be the closest person to her. She'd added, almost as an afterthought, if anything ever happens to Richard or me, I hope you'll always stay by her side. Lester had agreed without hesitation. He would have done so even if she hadn't asked. He was an orphan with few prospects. If it weren't for Catherine and Richard Thornton, he never would have had such a well-paying job. He had already planned to devote the rest of his life to serving their family. He just never imagined that his mistress's casual words would one day become a prophecy. Nor did he imagine that after her death, his master would grow so distant from his home. For most of her childhood, it was he who had taken care of Isabelle's daily needs. Now, watching his young miss look at Leo with eyes full of love, Lester was overwhelmed with emotion. His old eyes grew misty again, and he whispered silently in his heart, Mrs. Thornton, you can rest easy. Your little girl. She's found a wonderful young man. As they drove toward the estate, Isabelle had a sudden whim to go to the supermarket. They happened to be passing a Target, so Leo pulled into the underground parking garage. Lester, want to come with us? This time, Lester refused firmly. Thank you, Mr. Yeager, but I'll stay here. I would only be intruding. I'll just wait in the car. Please don't mind me. Well, please, Mr. Yeager, don't worry about it. You and the miss should go on ahead. Seeing that Lester was determined to stay, Leo just sighed and led Isabelle up the elevator and into the store. As soon as they walked in, Leo reached for his pocket and realized his phone was still in the car. Ugh, I left my phone in the car again, he grumbled. It was a bad habit. 8 times out of 10, if he got out of the car mid-trip, he'd leave his phone in the center console. He turned to Isabelle. Do you have your phone? I left mine, so I can't pay. MHM. Then I'll be your sugar mama tonight, she said, her eyes crinkling into a smile. She even patted her coat pocket proudly. But that single pat made her smile vanish. She stuck her hand in her pocket, felt around, and her lips formed a pout. I think I left mine too. We're screwed, Leo deadpanned. They were already deep inside the store. To get out, they'd have to find the checkout area, exit, and and then take the elevator back down to the garage. It was a huge hassle that would waste at least 20 minutes. He quickly checked his other pockets. Thankfully, his wallet was there. But these days, everyone paid with their phones. College students, especially, rarely carried cash. Leo was no exception. He opened his wallet and counted. All he had was some loose bills and change, adding up to just over $100. Maybe we should go back and get our phones. I only have $155.50. If you want to buy snacks and other stuff, this won't be enough. Isabelle seemed completely unbothered. In fact, she looked excited. No need to go back, Leo. This is enough. Are you sure? Isabelle's eyelashes fluttered. I'm very easy to take care of. I'm not a big spender at all. Leo held his breath, then reached out and pinched her smooth cheek until a faint pink mark appeared. He had to admit, she was a far cry from the Ice Queen who had first moved in next to him at the Maplewood. So this is what cute looks like, he thought. But he still snorted playfully. You say that with a straight face? Back at the food trucks, if I hadn't stopped you, you would have bought out that guy's entire stall. Isabelle's eyes went wide. Leo, did you install a camera inside my brain? Leo chuckled. Don't need one. When you bend over, I can just... never mind. Let's just say I know you well. He quickly corrected himself. Crap, he'd been hanging around Kevin too much. The next second, he heard her inner voice. Coward, you wouldn't dare even if I did. Oomph. Leo's eyes widened. Wait, is that a wholesome thought? Who programmed her to think like this? His eye twitched. He cleared his throat to change the subject. All right, let's go. See what you want to buy, but keep a running total. We can't go over $155.50. She chirped, then turned into a curious kitten, darting around the supermarket. She spent most of her time in the snack aisle. One bag of Lay's, $7. 90. One pack of seaweed, $8. 50. One can of popcorn, $13. 20. One pack of remaining balance, $77. 90. She was actually listening to him. Every time she picked something up, she would murmur its price and calculate the remaining amount. Pushing the shopping cart behind her, Leo felt a strange sense of dislocation. In that moment, it was as if Isabelle wasn't the heiress of the Thornton family, but just an ordinary girl. And he hadn't made all that money from Starfall Studios. They were just a normal couple, carefully budgeting for their snacks. At that same moment, he heard her thoughts again. Hee, this feels like we're a young married couple, carefully saving money. Leo paused, then smiled to himself. No matter how her circumstances changed, her personality, prone to random bouts of intense feeling, would always stay the same. After about 40 minutes, they were finally approaching the checkout counters. Leo still had a $50 budget left, but it seemed Isabelle had lost her desire to shop. We still have $50 left. You don't want to buy anything else? He asked. Isabelle's pretty eyes narrowed. She lifted her chin coolly. I do. I'll buy it in a minute. But the checkout is right up ahead. If you want something, you should get it from around here. She didn't respond, just pursed her lips and turned away. Leo couldn't figure out what she was thinking, so he just kept pushing the cart behind her. Soon they were in the checkout line. Only then did Isabelle dart over to the rack next to the register, the one with gum, mints, and candy. She carefully selected a few items and tossed them into the cart. Since Leo was in line, he couldn't see what she grabbed. What did you get? He called out. If it's over $50, we'll be over budget. Isabelle pursed her lips, murmuring to herself, one bag of Skittles, $4.90. One chocolate bar, $15. 00. And one box of Blue Devils, $29.90. Leo did the math. It seemed she'd spent the $50 almost perfectly, with just a few cents to spare. He nodded. Good job. But what kind of candy is Blue Devils? It's more expensive than the chocolate. Isabelle didn't answer, just pouted and discreetly pointed to Leo's left. He turned his head, confused. On a large advertisement on the side of the display rack, the words were written in bold letters. The only way to stop her shopping. Durex. Leo stared at the advertisement, his heart stuttering. Oh my God, it's not candy. Once he realized what Blue Devils were, the way he looked at Isabelle changed completely. He took a few deep, steadying breaths and asked in a hushed, urgent tone, What are you buying this for? You bought them first, Isabelle replied, looking at him with an expression of pure innocence, as if her logic was unassailable. Leo was about to argue that he'd never bought such a thing in his life, but then he remembered what she had found in his pocket the previous night. Ahem, you misunderstood. The one you found in my pocket last night. It wasn't mine. Sure. Leo is such a bad liar. Hearing her inner monologue, Leo was at a loss for words. It was true. She had found it in his pocket. Denying it was pointless. She would never believe him. Now he stared at the box in their cart, lost in thought. As they neared the front of the line, He pleaded, "Put it back." "Why?" Isabelle blinked, her eyes wide with what looked like genuine, simple confusion, as if she truly had no idea what the box was for. "Right? Playing dumb again. Don't think I don't know you're a master of feigned ignorance. It's 2024, for crying out loud. Forget college students. Even elementary schoolers probably know what these are." Leo cleared his throat. We don't need this." Isabelle's eyes widened, and her voice took on a wounded tone. "Leo, you're a bad person." Haley said, "This is to protect me. You don't want to protect me." In the end, under Isabelle's firm insistence, Leo bought the $29.90 box of Durex. The cashier was a rather handsome young man. When he saw the demure-looking Isabelle standing beside Leo, his face was a mask of pure envy and admiration. He might as well have had "you lucky bastard" tattooed on his forehead. Leo could only laugh bitterly to himself. "Lucky my ass. We haven't even gotten to that stage yet. My backup phone doesn't need a case yet, okay?" After their shopping trip, Leo drove Isabelle back to the car, and they continued on their way to the Thornton estate. Lester glanced at the shopping bag, filled mostly with snacks, and chuckled. Mr. Yeager, back when Mr. Thornton was still working in Crestview, he was very strict with the miss. He rarely let her eat things like this. A few snacks won't hurt anything. Banning them completely is just scaring yourself for no reason. I grew up eating this stuff. I even ate those 50-cent spicy jerky sticks, and I turned out just fine," Leo laughed. Sure, a lot of snacks were just chemical concoctions, but they weren't going to kill anyone. If they did, they wouldn't be on supermarket shelves. Before Lester could reply, Isabelle nodded from the passenger seat, her eyes shining as she told him, "Leo's a good person." "But Miss," Lester asked, "did you and Mr. Yeager only buy snacks at the supermarket?" Isabelle narrowed her eyes and shook her head coolly. "We also bought Blue Devils." Hearing her announce their extra item so casually, Leo's hands clenched on the steering wheel, making the car swerve slightly. Thankfully, they were in the suburbs by then, with few other cars on the road. "Isabelle, who taught you to share every single detail? You can buy it, but you don't have to announce it to the world. Is it something you just say out loud?" To his immense relief, Lester just looked puzzled. "Blue Devils? I thought that was a children's cartoon. You can buy that at the supermarket now?" I really am getting old. I can't keep up with you young people anymore." Leo's heart, which had been lodged in his throat, finally dropped back into his chest. Thank God. Lester has no idea what she's talking about. He glanced over at Isabelle and found her watching him with a sly, knowing half-smile. Leo had a distinct feeling. Ever since her hot springs trip with Haley, something had changed. It was like a switch had been flipped. Meanwhile, in New York City, inside the Thornton villa, Landon Archer and Sharon Thornton sat facing each other. Landon handed her a file folder. "Aunt Sharon, this folder contains all the information on the boy who's always around Isabelle now, Leo Yeager. I also found out he started a social media studio with some of his classmates. The detailed report is in there." Sharon took the folder and flipped through it casually. Her brow furrowed for a moment, then relaxed. A second later, she tossed the folder aside, her face a mask of disdain. "I can't believe this boy is trying to be an entrepreneur in college. It may look like he's had some minor success, but to think he could ever be on the same level as our family is impossible. This is nothing more than a child's pathetic struggle. Even if he worked his entire life, he could never reach the heights the Thornton family has." The file contained a comprehensive overview of Starfall Studios, from its first channel to its most recent, and even included information on every one of its brand partners. Landon had compiled it all himself, but Sharon had barely glanced at it. To her, no matter what Leo did, he was just an insignificant ant. In the face of a giant like the Thornton family, what could a tiny studio, not even big enough to be called a shell company, possibly do? More importantly, her own driver and confidant, Jonathan, had already provided her with this information. She hadn't mentioned it because she was testing Landon. If he were secretly on Isabelle's side, he likely would have hidden these facts. Seeing Sharon's dismissive attitude toward Leo, Landon remained impassive. It seems this Leo likes Isabelle, and she has unusual feelings for him as well. Sharon feigned surprise, then sighed dramatically. "Landon, you know I'm pregnant, and with Isabelle away at college in Crestview, I've been so busy between my health and helping your uncle with the company that I haven't been able to keep a close eye on her. I had no idea she was getting so close to another boy. To be honest with you, since you and Isabelle grew up together, I've always seen you as the best possible match for her." Landon smiled faintly. "You misunderstand, and Sharon, I'm not showing you this to blame you. I've been out of the country for years. It's only natural that Isabelle would get close to someone else. It's just that there are too many people in this world who don't know their place. They're commoners who want to climb into a world that doesn't belong to them. I know you have people watching over her, so you would have found this out eventually. He paused, his voice turning cold. I'm telling you this first because I want to be the one to deal with him. Sharon's eyes narrowed slightly, but she remained silent. Landon continued. Aunt Sharon, I know that besides me, Isabelle has never really had any friends, and her relationship with you has always been strained. That's mostly due to her personality. But this Leo has managed to evoke these feelings in her, which means he's more than he appears. His Starfall Studios is apparently seeking investment now, looking to become a proper media company. He leaned forward slightly. I want to approach him. I'll invest in a studio as a patron, once it reaches a certain height. Well, as an investor, I naturally have a right to withdraw my funding at any time. He didn't have to spell it out. Sharon understood perfectly. She considered it for a moment, then said, Landon, if you dislike this boy, I can just... Thank you, Aunt Sharon. Landon cut her off, shaking his head. But doing it that way would only make Isabelle resentful. I want to crush him completely, to make her lose all hope in him. I want her heart to belong only to me, without any lingering affection for some mediocre commoner. As he spoke, a flicker of viciousness crossed his eyes, which Sharon did not miss. She was very pleased. Feigning reluctance, she hesitated for a dramatic moment before nodding. All right, I won't interfere in you young people's affairs. But if you run into any trouble, you can always come to me. Don't worry, Aunt Sharon. He's just a low-class nobody. Speaking of which, our family has a new project my father has put me in charge of. I've just returned to the country and don't have many connections. Since you're helping Uncle Richard now, I was wondering if you could take a look and see if you could help me. Landon gestured for his assistant to bring over another file. At the mention of an Archer family project, Sharon's casual attitude vanished. She took this file seriously, reading it intently. A flicker of triumph lit her eyes. If she could get her hands on this project, her own plans could be accelerated. But not wanting to tip her hand, she maintained a thoughtful expression for a long time before finally saying, as if troubled, Landon, I'll have to discuss this with your uncle. But with me here, you can rest assured. Even if he doesn't agree, I'll find a way to help you. Really? Landon's face lit up with feigned joy. Thank you, Aunt Sharon. Don't mention it, she said with a slight smile, then called for a maid to brew some tea. In a corner she couldn't see, a faint, knowing smile touched Landon's lips. Back in Crestview, at the Thornton estate. Even though Leo had been here several times, he still couldn't help but marvel at the sheer opulence as he drove through the gates. It must be nice to be rich, he thought. Unlike his previous visits, when the estate had seemed deserted except for the guards at the gate, this time the main house was staffed with several maids and housekeepers. It was clear Isabelle wasn't planning on using any flimsy excuses to get into his room tonight. After they entered the house, Lester asked with a smile, Mr. Yeager, what would you like for dinner? I'll have the chef prepare it right away. I'm good with. Before Leo could finish, Isabelle cut him off. I'm cooking tonight, Leo. Lester. Both of them stared at her, their eyes wide with shock. They both knew she couldn't cook. She either ate at restaurants or had a private chef. Would the food even be edible? Lester opened his mouth, tentatively asking, Miss, are you joking? Isabelle looked taken aback, then pouted at him. You're a bad person, Lester. Ahem, very well, miss. I'll go inform Martha to assist you. Lester wiped his forehead, though there was no sweat there, and turned to find the head cook. Before he left, however, he whispered to the head butler, Get Dr. Chin on the phone immediately. Tell him to report to the estate. The miss is cooking. Well, at the very least, we must ensure Mr. Yeager's safety. The butler, grasping the severity of the situation, quickly stepped aside and made the call. Once they were alone, Leo asked in amazement, You can cook? Isabelle lifted her chin coolly. You just sit on the sofa and be good. Dinner will be ready soon. Shouldn't I help? No, she said firmly, then spun around and marched toward the kitchen. Leo stood frozen in the living room, swallowing hard. He seriously wondered if he would make it out of the Thornton estate alive. About an hour later, the maids began carrying several beautifully plated dishes from the kitchen and arranging them on the dining table. A moment later, Isabelle emerged, wearing a pink apron, a proud look on her face. Her eyes screamed, Praise me now. Leo's jaw dropped as he looked at the magnificent feast. You made all this? MHM. Martha just gave me a little guidance. Right, Martha? Isabelle pursed her lips and looked pointedly at the head cook standing beside her. Martha glanced at her young miss, then at Leo, and managed a strained smile. Yes, sir. I was merely assisting the miss in the kitchen. Leo picked up his chopsticks and tried a piece of meat. He understood immediately. He could just picture it. Martha doing all the cooking while Isabelle stood beside her in an apron, pointing and giving orders, then taking all the credit. What a perfect flipping of the script. After Leo and Isabelle finished dinner, maids cleared the table. As they worked, Leo recognized two of them, the same pair he'd accidentally seen when Isabelle was showering on his first visit to the Thornton estate. He caught the distinct look of gratitude in their eyes. Clearly, they were relieved he had kept his word and never mentioned to Isabelle that they hadn't managed to leave the main house in time that night. Once the staff had finished cleaning and departed, the massive house fell silent, leaving just Leo and Isabelle alone again. Isabelle went upstairs and returned a few minutes later, having changed into a fluffy pajama set. The hood had a pair of floppy rabbit ears sewn onto it, making her look impossibly cute. She pursed her lips, plopped down on the sofa, and switched on a large projector, killing all the lights in the living room. The screen flickered to life, bathing the room in a soft glow. She patted the cushion next to her, her eyes crinkling into a smile. Leo, movie time. TSK. Leo clicked his tongue. It had become a ritual. Every time he came to the estate for the weekend, Isabelle insisted they watch a movie. At first, he'd assumed she was just a huge film buff. He'd even invited her to the theater during the week whenever he had a break from class and there was nothing urgent at the studio, but she never seemed particularly interested. That's when he'd figured it out. She didn't love movies. She loved the excuse a movie provided. She loved waiting until she thought he was distracted and then stealthily burrowing her way into his arms. A public theater just didn't offer the same freedom for her affectionate maneuvers as the privacy of her own home. Just as he predicted, the moment she selected a film, she snuggled up against his side. Oscar the ragdoll and Buttercream the Samoyed, not wanting to be left out, immediately curled up on the rug at their feet, as if they, too, could appreciate a good movie. Huh? Titanic? Leo asked as the opening credits rolled. You've never seen a classic like this before? Isabelle shook her head slightly. I haven't. I never really watched movies growing up. Well, this one's a long one, Leo warned her. Longer than the others we've watched. We won't be done until midnight, probably. He hadn't had much time for movies either, but he and Kevin had managed to see the essentials over the years. The Shawshank Redemption, The Pursuit of Happiness, and, of course, Titanic. He remembered exactly when he'd first seen it. It was back in middle school. His class had aced a set of monthly exams, earning the highest average score in the entire grade. As a reward, their homeroom teacher had generously dedicated an entire afternoon of study hall to showing them the film. The fallout had been immediate. During study hall breaks that evening, the boys in his class had descended into chaos, pairing off to recreate the iconic "I'm flying" scene from the deck, one wrapping his arms around the other from behind. Oh, Jack! Oh, Rose! The whole thing was dripping with homoerotic energy. Kevin had passionately insisted Leo play Rose. Years later, watching it for the second time with Isabelle curled up next to him on the sofa, the experience felt entirely new. Even knowing the entire plot, he felt a sense of fresh anticipation. As the main characters appeared on screen, Isabelle shifted, tucking her legs beneath her. She wrapped her arms around his and gazed at the screen, a look of pure contentment on her face. Leo glanced down, his eyes catching her long lashes and the beautiful curve of her cheek, illuminated by the shifting light from the projector. He couldn't help but smile. He knew what was coming. At some point, she tried to subtly maneuver herself into his lap, probably causing them both to miss a key plot point. Deciding to skip the intermediate steps, he simply wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her directly onto his lap. Isabelle let out a soft cry of surprise, startled by the sudden movement. A moment later, she relaxed, wiggling until she found a comfortable position before turning her full attention back to the movie. Leo watched the film, acutely aware of the warmth and delicate fragrance radiating from the girl in his arms. His heart began to pound. To keep himself from getting any ideas, he started a frantic internal mantra. My backup phone is out of battery. My backup phone is out of battery. My backup phone is out of battery. Yeah, well, guess what? The backup phone was about to explode. As the movie progressed, even Leo, who knew the story by heart, found himself completely drawn in. Jack and Rose were from two different worlds. In that era, a relationship between them would have been impossible under normal circumstances. But Jack winning that ticket onto the Titanic gave them a chance to meet, sparking a love story that defied class and convention. It made Leo think about him and Isabelle. They were from different worlds, too. If it hadn't been for that brief intersection in their childhoods, he would have lived his entire life without ever getting the chance to be with a girl like her. Even now, With over $1 million in the bank from Starfall Studios, his wealth was a drop in the ocean compared to hers. That money would barely cover a few months' salary for the staff at the Thornton estate. His mind wandered, and by the time he tuned back in, the plot had moved to Jack and Rose hiding from their pursuers in the ship's cargo hold. Rose had pulled Jack in the back of a car. Their eyes met, full of unspoken passion, and they fell into a deep kiss. Leo remembered this part from years ago. The scene was supposed to cut directly to them running hand in hand onto the deck at night, right before the ship hit the iceberg. But the scene didn't cut. Instead, it lingered on Jack and Rose in the car as they started, checking out each other's backup phones. A moment later, a steamy handprint appeared on the car window. Holy crap, this part definitely wasn't in the version we saw at school. He thought, his eyes wide as the suggestive scene continued. So, what I saw back then was the edited version. This must be the unrated cut. At that moment, the girl in his arms stirred. Her body, which had been relaxed against his, suddenly tensed. He could feel her trembling slightly, her attention completely glued to the screen. Clearly, she'd never seen anything like this before. Leo drew a sharp breath, his own breathing catching his throat. As soft moans filled the room, Leo cleared his throat loudly, trying to break the increasingly awkward tension. Before he could say anything, Isabelle tilted her head back, her face illuminated by the screen, and asked with wide-eyed innocence, "Leo, what are they doing?" Leo rubbed his nose, feeling a hot flush creep up his neck. They're checking out the backup phone. ? Isabelle's eyes were filled with a pure, unadulterated confusion. She stared straight into his eyes, a universe of liquid light swirling in her gaze. "Leo," she said softly, her voice a breath against his skin. "I want to see your backup phone, too." "Leo, I want to see your backup phone, too." There was absolutely no way she was seeing the backup phone. But that didn't stop it from pressing insistently against her. After a few more agonizing moments, the movie finally cut away from the steamy scene to the tense sequence of a ship approaching the iceberg. The immediate crisis on screen pulled both their attentions back, and the awkwardness of the previous moment was temporarily forgotten. As the disaster unfolded, the panic on the ship grew more and more intense. Leo held Isabelle tighter, as if he could shield her from the on-screen tragedy. She burrowed into his embrace, her eyes fixed on the screen, her face a mask of tension. During the film's climax, as Jack and Rose fought for survival, their love shining all the brighter in the face of death, even the usually aloof Isabelle was deeply moved. In the dim light, Leo could see her eyes glistening with unshed tears. When the credits finally rolled, she remained silent for a long time. The only sound was the soft drip of her tears landing on Leo's hand. He gently squeezed her cheek, wiping the tears away with his thumb. Isabelle looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed and serious. "Leo, if we were ever in a situation like that, a life-or-death moment, you're not allowed to do what he did." Leo laughed. "It's 2018. Technology is a lot better now. Even if we took a cruise, we wouldn't hit an iceberg." "I know, but other things could happen," she insisted, her expression still deadly serious. "It could be a different situation, but the same outcome. I don't want you to leave me alone in this world." Seeing how earnest she was, Leo's tone became serious too. "If something like that really happened, I'd definitely make the same choice as him." "No. Well, we can't just do nothing and both die. What a waste that would be," Leo said helplessly. But she wouldn't let it go. "I don't care. You can't leave me alone. I would rather die with you." Looking at the absolute conviction on her face, Leo felt a strange sense of wonder. She had never been this insistent about anything he disagreed with before. Yet here she was, stubbornly arguing about a hypothetical situation that would almost certainly never happen. It was clear that if that day ever came, she truly didn't want him to leave her behind. A warmth spread through Leo's chest, and he felt a prickling in his nose. For so many years, he'd never experienced this kind of profound connection. But today he realized there was a girl in this world who would rather die with him than live without him. He stared at her determined face for a moment before a smile broke through. He reached up and playfully ruffled her hair. "You're not allowed to imagine such unlucky scenarios. Neither of us is allowed to die." "Okay," Isabelle murmured, still seemingly lost in the movie's emotional aftermath. Leo didn't mind. Girls were emotional creatures, even his cool and collected neighbor. He didn't think for a second they'd ever face a real life-or-death situation. It was 2018, and America wasn't some lawless country. What kind of danger could they possibly run into? Leo spent the rest of the weekend at the Thornton estate with Isabelle. When he returned to his dorm room Sunday night, Rex Gao took one look at him and nearly jumped out of his chair. Holy crap, Rex yelped. Leo, what did you do all weekend? Look at those dark circles. Dude, you need to spend less time on those special interest subreddits. Even I've cut back. Besides, you have a girlfriend now. You shouldn't be this desperate, seriously. Watching Rex's exaggerated performance, a muscle in Leo's jaw twitched. Get lost, he grumbled. I don't even go on Reddit. Then what's with the raccoon eyes? Leo sighed. I spent 2 days in my neighbor's place. This is the result. Whoa. Rex's eyes widened in shock, his body trembling. The next second, his face contorted into a mask of disbelief. Wait, you don't mean you and Isabelle? You already went all the way? Damn it, man. I don't even have a girlfriend, and you've already gotten first blood? You son of a bitch. You're overthinking it, Leo said with a wry smile. If that's all it was, I wouldn't have dark circles this bad after just 2 days. He walked over to the mirror and confirmed his haggard appearance. It was true that he had spent both nights sleeping in the same bed as Isabelle. The problem was after their good night kisses and cuddles, nothing else happened. Then, Isabelle would pretend to be asleep and unconsciously bump up against his backup phone. So, for 2 nights, Isabelle slept like a baby, waking up with a rosy complexion and looking even more beautiful than usual. But Leo, he suffered. Just sharing a bed with her was enough to send his blood pressure soaring, making sleep difficult. But with his backup phone on high alert all night, sleep was completely impossible. He hadn't gotten a single good night's rest, hence the heavy dark circles. Sigh. To the outside world, Isabelle Thornton was a cold, untouchable goddess. Who would have guessed that in private, she was a terminally online girl constantly probing his limits, desperate to play with his backup phone. That wicked little neighbor has turned into a succubus, Leo lamented internally. He swore to himself that if she tried it again next time, he'd have no choice but to turn into a monster and catch that little pixie. As December rolled in, the weather in Crestview grew colder. With final exams approaching, the campus pathways became quieter, students holing up to study. After his Monday morning class, Leo was leaving the dining hall with Rex and the others when he received a call from an unknown number. Hello, who's this? Leo Yeager? This is Dean Campbell. Leo was surprised. Mr. Campbell? Is something wrong? You don't have any afternoon classes, right? Dean Campbell said. There's a meeting at 2:30 p.m. The dean of the business school and some other university administrators will be there. If you're free, you should come to the conference room in the admin building at 2:00. It could be beneficial for you and your startup. Can I ask what the meeting is about, sir? Just to see if I need to prepare anything. No need to prepare. It's just an end-of-semester summary meeting. They'll discuss the New Year's gala and the exam schedule, but they'll also be talking about supporting student entrepreneurs on campus. If you're free, you should come listen. Hearing the purpose of the meeting, Leo agreed without much hesitation. Okay, sir. I'll be there on time. After he hung up, Rex asked casually, what was that about? Why is the dean calling you? You're not a class rep or anything. It's not about class. He wants me to attend a meeting about student startups. I guess he thinks it would be good for me to hear what kind of support the university offers. Rex scoffed. I doubt it'll be much help for you. The university's support is usually just a little seed money. Your studio is so big now, that kind of funding would be a drop in the bucket, right? You can't look at it that way, Leo explained. Maybe they have other kinds of support. U of C is a top-tier university with a huge alumni network. Maybe the school connects promising student startups with alumni investors from major companies. That's not small change. Initially, Leo had thought the same as Rex, but on second thought, he realized it was best to go. Even if there was no tangible benefit, it was his advisor who had personally invited him. Refusing would be disrespectful. Besides, building a good relationship with his advisor was never a bad idea. For example, if he ever needed to skip a class and a professor noticed, the dean might be able to smooth things over. That was a perk money couldn't buy. Before heading over, Leo mentioned the meeting in the Starfall Studios group chat. Sean Shao. I know that meeting. The university holds them every few months to support student projects. They usually only pick 1 or 2 representatives from each year. There are a lot of juniors with startups, so I wasn't chosen. But there aren't many freshman entrepreneurs, so you were an easy pick. The support won't mean much for Starfall anymore, but it's good for you to go. You can get some face time with the business school administrators and network with student government leaders. Ruby Yu. I went to one of those meetings when I was in student government as a sophomore. Their comments gave Leo a better idea of what to expect. At 2 o'clock, he arrived at the conference room in the administration building. Dean Campbell was standing by the door. Sir. Good, you're here. Go on in and take the 3rd seat in the 3rd row by the aisle. I'm just waiting on a few more people. Leo nodded and entered the conference room. It was mostly filled with students. One group, sitting quietly and talking in low voices, were entrepreneurs like him. The other, more boisterous group, wore the distinctive pins of the student government. They chatted and laughed together, clearly more at ease, as this was routine for them. After finding his seat, Leo took a look around before pulling out his phone to text Isabelle. "Hey neighbor, what are you up to?" "Nina, I spoke with my director. I told him a good friend of mine had a startup and wanted to sit in on the meeting to see about getting support. He didn't think anything of it, so you could just sit next to me." Ethan, you walked behind a striking girl. Though she wore only light makeup, her exceptional beauty turned heads as soon as she entered the room. Her name was Nina Ning, also a freshman. Ethan, a sophomore, was the vice president of the U of C student government. His voice was gentle, and the affection in his eyes was undisguised. Nina just nodded slightly. "Thank you, Ethan. Hey, don't mention it. We're childhood friends, after all. A little favor like this is nothing," Ethan said, scratching the back of his head shyly. It was true. Ethan had a huge crush on Nina. They had grown up together, but Nina had underperformed on the math section of her SATs and missed her chance to get into USC. She'd taken a gap year and reapplied, finally getting in this year. Ethan had been waiting faithfully for her. Even though Nina had said she wasn't interested in dating right now, Ethan was convinced his sincerity would eventually win her over. Hearing his words, Nina's brow furrowed. "Ethan, we were just neighbors who grew up together. I wouldn't call us childhood friends. Please don't say that anymore. People will get the wrong idea." Ethan's expression froze, but he quickly recovered with a laugh. Right. He told himself she was just being proper, not wanting any ambiguity before they were officially a couple. "Nina sighed. I wouldn't have had to bother you, but my advisor said only one freshman is allowed to attend. The spot for our year was already taken by some guy from the business school named Leo Yeager. I heard his project is a media studio that's already profitable." She paused. "I'm really curious who this Leo Yeager is. I'll ask around once the meeting starts. It won't be hard to find out," Ethan said smugly. "Leo Yeager?" A soft, timid voice came from beside them. They turned to see a very sweet-looking girl. Noticing their gaze, her cheeks flushed. Vice President you. I'm in the same class as Leo Yeager. That guy over there in the third row. That's him." Clara Shun, who had joined the student government 2 months ago, timidly pointed her finger forward. "Excuse me, are you Leo Yeager?" Leo was texting Isabelle. She and her roommates were all studying for finals when a guy's voice sounded from behind him. He turned in surprise to see a refined-looking guy with glasses sitting in the row behind him. The student government pin on his chest identified him as an officer. "I am, and you are." The guy smiled faintly and extended a hand. "Nice to meet you. I'm Charles Chu, president of the student government." "Hello, President Chu. Can I help you with something?" Leo asked, shaking his hand. He couldn't recall ever meeting the student government president before. Charles smiled. "Nothing important. I just heard you're a freshman who's already started his own business. I really admire people who have the guts to do that while still in school. If you don't mind, we could exchange numbers. If you ever run into any problems at school, feel free to contact me." Oh, Leo quickly understood. Charles was probably adding all the student entrepreneurs. He'd heard from Sean that college was full of all kinds of people, especially networkers like Charles. By reaching out now, before anyone had made it big, Charles was building his future connections. Few student startups succeeded, but if even one did, he'd be considered a visionary friend. It was much harder to cozy up to someone after they were already successful. Realizing this, Leo gave Charles a knowing look. "Clever guy." "Sure," Leo agreed, seeing no reason to refuse. He and Charles exchanged numbers. The student government president had some pull on campus. It was a useful connection to have. "Great. Let's keep in touch. The meeting is about to start, so I won't bother you," Charles said, then fell silent. Just then, the university administrators began to arrive, and Dean Campbell took the seat next to Leo. As the meeting began, Leo listened carefully. Just as he'd expected, the financial support the university offered was of little practical use to Starfall Studios at its current stage. Dean Campbell, sitting beside him, seemed to sense his disinterest. He leaned over and whispered, "Leo, I've looked into your studio's scale, and it seems you're already quite profitable. The support the dean mentioned probably won't help you much. However, if you need help with contracts or setting up a legal department, the university can be a great resource. If you're interested, I can help you apply to have some of the professors from the law school consult for you. Some of them have their own private firms, which would be far more convenient and secure than finding one on your own." Hearing this, Leo's eyes lit up. Starfall was indeed in the process of forming a legal department. This was an excellent opportunity. Thank you, sir. I'll write up a proposal. Whenever you're free, could you help me submit it to the right person? Of course, Dean Campbell nodded. Soon, the meeting ended, and the administrators filed out. Leo stood up, ready to leave, when he saw a familiar face walking toward him. Clara? You're in the student government. Leo was surprised to see the official pin on her chest. Clara blushed. Yes, I'm the vice director of the outreach department now. She bit her lip and then gestured behind her. Leo, this is our student government vice president. He wanted to meet you, so I thought I'd make an introduction. The vice president? Leo thought, surprised. First the president, now the VP. Is starting a business on campus really this big of a deal? Before Leo could speak, Ethan Yu stepped forward. Hi, I'm Ethan Yu, student government VP. This is my friend, Nina Ning. She's a freshman like you, and she also has a startup project. I thought since you're both freshman entrepreneurs Ethan paused, looking reluctant. But after a glance at Nina, he continued. You could exchange contact info and share your experiences. Leo looked at the beautiful girl beside Ethan, who had a hint of pride on her face. He immediately sensed Ethan's feelings for her and understood the situation. Besides, adding another girl's number could stir up a storm with Isabelle, his resident jealousy expert. He smiled politely. Sure, President Yu. Let's add each other. You can pull Nina and me into a group chat later, and we can discuss things there. A wide grin spread across Ethan's face. All right, this kid knows the score. Fearing Leo might change his mind, Ethan quickly pulled out his phone and added him. After that, Leo said a quick goodbye to Clara and left. Nina watched Leo's retreating back, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. From start to finish, he hadn't said a single word to her directly, and his gaze had been completely neutral. She knew she was attractive. No guy had ever looked at her with such indifference. More importantly, he'd had a perfect chance to get her number and had instead suggested a group chat. Suddenly, Nina found herself intensely curious about Leo Yeager. Interesting, she murmured, then turned to Ethan. Ethan, give me Leo's contact info. Huh, but we agreed to talk in the group chat, Ethan replied instinctively. Nina shook her head, annoyed. Business is private. Since you're not an entrepreneur, it's not right for you to see our discussions in the group. But if you won't give it to me, I'll just go ask him for it myself. Hearing that, Ethan panicked, afraid of making her angry. He reluctantly gave her Leo's contact info. Without hesitation, Nina sent Leo a friend request. She was convinced he had been playing hard to get. Now that she had made the first move, he would surely accept immediately. But a few minutes after she sent the request, a notification popped up on her screen. She looked down, and her face froze. The user has declined your friend request. The user has declined your friend request. Nina stared at the notification, stunned. For a long moment, she couldn't process it. It was Ethan's voice that finally brought her back to reality. Nina, he probably just misclicked. I'm sure he'll send you a request any second now. Nina didn't reply, her expression complicated as she looked at her phone. In her entire life, she had never been rejected by a guy. It was always the other way around. She had always been a proud person. She knew some might find her arrogant, but she wasn't one of those girls with an inflated sense of self-worth. She truly believed she possessed a charm that other girls didn't. She had the right to be proud. So when she met Leo today, and he not only showed zero interest, but also rejected her direct advance, she was doubly shocked. But Ethan's words offered a plausible explanation. Right? He probably just misclicked. At the thought, Nina felt a wave of relief, followed by a small, derisive laugh. So he's just like all the others after all. Playing hard to get, but he fumbled it. Now I'll have to be the one to add me. A slight smirk touched her lips as she waited for Leo's friend request to appear. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 full minutes passed, and nothing. Her expression finally crumbled, her face darkening. So, it wasn't a mistake. He did it on purpose. Watching her frown, Ethan was secretly thrilled. At least Nina hadn't added another guy to her contacts. He quickly said, Hey, Nina, don't worry about it. He probably went to grab dinner and didn't even realize he misclicked. Let's go to the dining hall. It's about that time. Fine, Nina said, not dwelling on it. She still couldn't believe Leo had rejected her intentionally. They went to the university dining hall, where Ethan eagerly took on the task of getting their food. When he returned to the table with 2 trays, Nina was still frowning at her phone. Nina, put your phone away and eat. I'll eat in a minute. The food will get cold. It's bad for your stomach. Ethan said with concern, feeling like the perfect, thoughtful guy. He was always so cool and detached as the student government VP. If anyone else saw him like this, they'd be shocked. Wow, President Yu isn't cold at all. He just saves all his warmth for the girl he loves. He couldn't help but smile foolishly at the thought. But in reality, Nina just shook her head stubbornly. Ethan, I said I'll eat in a minute. I don't like it when people try to change my mind. Okay, I get it. Ethan fell silent, not wanting to upset her further. Just then, Nina's expression changed. She pointed uncertainly behind him. Hey, is that Leo Yeager? Huh. Ethan turned to look. About 20 feet away, Leo was eating while looking at his phone. Every so often, he put down his chopsticks and typed furiously on the screen, clearly messaging someone. Yeah, I think that's him, Ethan said. The confirmation made Nina's face turn ugly. She was now absolutely certain. Leo had intentionally rejected her request. He wasn't away from his phone. He was actively using it to chat with someone else. How could he have missed a request? Before either of them could react, Leo finished his meal, stood up, and left the dining hall. As his figure disappeared, Ethan said lamely, Well, Nina, if he doesn't want to add you, just forget it. Let's eat. Nina snorted. No one has ever treated me like this. You can't starve yourself over some inconsiderate guy. It hurt me to see you like this, Nina. Nina flinched at his words and shot him an annoyed look. Ethan, stop saying things that make it sound like we're a couple. Okay. Just eat, please. I have no appetite after he rejected me, Nina declared. She opened her phone, sent another friend request to Leo, and then stood up and walked out of the dining hall, leaving her dinner untouched. Ethan glanced at his own barely eaten meal, then at Nina's retreating figure. With a frustrated sigh, he abandoned his food and hurried after her. After leaving the dining hall, Leo headed for the library, stopping at Chatter Tea to buy drinks for Isabelle and her roommates. He found them in a quiet corner. As he approached, Isabelle's cool eyes softened instantly. She scooted over, making room for him and pressing closer. Seeing this, Haley Xia wore a knowing, motherly smile. Isabelle, the second your man shows up, you melt like you don't have any bones in your body. You just want to crawl right into his arms. Isabelle just huffed without replying. Leo, unfazed, passed out the drinks. Brought you guys some tea. Yay, more bubble tea. Isabelle, your boyfriend is the best, Haley exclaimed. She thanked Leo, then sighed contentedly. It's so great having you around. Whenever you come find Isabelle, you always bring us drinks. Zoe, Jesse, you two need to get boyfriends. Then Leo can bring the tea, and your boyfriends can bring cake. I'd be in heaven. Zoe Chong rolled her eyes with a smile. In your dreams. Haley is a good person. Haley is a good person. Haley is a good person. Leo chuckled at the girls' banter and Isabelle's internal monologue. After they chatted for a bit, not wanting to disturb their studying, he pulled out his own textbook and started reviewing alongside Isabelle. With finals coming up, it couldn't hurt. Besides, he got to study with his girl and hold her hand under the table. What could be better? A moment later, his phone, sitting on the table, buzzed repeatedly. He assumed it was another friend request from that Nina girl and frowned. He'd already rejected her once after the meeting and again on his way to the library. Why was she so persistent? Don't girls have any sense of boundaries these days? He grumbled internally as he picked up his phone. But when he unlocked the screen, he saw it wasn't a friend request. It was a series of messages from Ethan Yu, the student government VP. Leo, please just accept Nina's friend request. If you don't, she won't eat. She's completely lost her appetite. She already has a sensitive stomach. If she doesn't eat, she'll be up all night with stomach pain. What kind of simp literature is this? Leo stared at the messages from Ethan, completely baffled. He'd had his suspicions in the conference room, but now it was confirmed. This guy was a first-class simp. Remembering the advice of an upperclassman, save one if you can, Leo typed back a quick reply. President Yu, if you like Nina, just pursue her normally. This whole act, you sound like a massive simp. Leo, your language is disgusting. This isn't being a simp. I'm concerned about her. It's all being a nice guy. Leo's face was expressionless. That's even more pathetic. Nice guy is just one step above simp. Ethan seemed to be stunned into silence for a few seconds before another message came through. Just drop it. Please, just add Nina. I'll owe you one. I like her, and I can't stand to see her upset. Leo was officially speechless. Dude, is your ID a picture of a doormat? If you like her, shouldn't you be trying to stop her from adding me? Why are you begging me to add her? You're a student government VP, for crying out loud. Have some self-respect. Besides, if I add her, aren't you worried we'll hit it off and I'll end up stealing your girl? You're overthinking it. Nina only wanted to add you to talk about business. She's just mad now because you keep rejecting her. You're not her type. I know her better than anyone. We're childhood friends. You've been childhood friends for this long, and you still haven't won her over? Doesn't that prove you're not her type either? That's none of your business. Just add her. I'm begging you. Seeing how persistent he was, Leo simply muted his chat. This guy was beyond saving. He needed a wake-up call, not a conversation. Putting his phone down, he felt a nudge from Isabelle. She blinked her wide eyes at him. Who keeps messaging you? Leo shrugged. Oh, no one important. Oh. Around 10 o'clock, Leo, Isabelle, and her roommates finally left the library. It was one of the few times he had actually studied since starting college. He had to admit, even though it was supposed to be a review session, it felt more like he was learning the material for the first time. Why did you guys suddenly decide to start studying now? He asked Isabelle. Finals are still over a month away. Before she could answer, Haley jumped in. It's all your girlfriend's fault. The three of us are usually binge-watching shows at night, but she's always at her desk, reading textbooks or watching online lectures. At first, we were just a little anxious, but now that it's getting closer to the end of the semester, we can't sit still anymore. Oh, Leo looked at Isabelle in surprise. He hadn't realized she was studying so hard in the dorm. She always paid attention in class, unlike him and his roommates, who were either playing games or sleeping. Even without studying, she was easily a top 5 student. Why was she working so hard? Isabelle's face tensed. She whispered to Leo, Haley's lying? I don't do that. How am I lying? Zoe and Jesse saw you. Leo, ask them if you don't believe me. Seeing Haley's earnest expression, Leo just chuckled. He didn't need to ask. He knew Haley had no reason to lie about something so trivial. Isabelle was probably just worried he'd feel guilty for asking her out on evening walks and interrupting her study time. The thought made him smile. He reached out and pinched her chilly cheek. Want to get some hot chocolate? Yes. At the mention of a treat, her eyes lit up. She had Haley and the others take her books back to the dorm, then slipped her hand into his as they went to find a cafe. But at that moment, Leo didn't realize that Isabelle never lied to him. And when she said she wasn't studying in the dorm at night, she wasn't lying then, either. After getting hot chocolate and finding a quiet spot in a campus grove for a while, Leo walked Isabelle back to her dorm. When he got back to his own room, Rex Gal pounced. Leo, the guys in the next room have already started studying for finals. Should we start too? Leo waved a dismissive hand. Study? Please. If I have the guts to ignore the lecture in class, I have the guts to skip studying for the test. For real? You're committed to the Sigma male lifestyle, huh? Absolutely. Ask Ned and Felix. They're not studying either. He glanced over at Felix's phone, who was gaming with his crush, Cece, and Ned Nyo, who was lying in bed reading a romance novel with a sappy grin on his face. Felix, not studying. I gotta carry Cece. No time. Ned, me neither. I have to see how my OTP gets together. Hearing their responses, Leo shrugged at Rex. See? I thought you were the brave one, Rex. Why are you so scared of a few exams? Who's scared? Don't be ridiculous. I was just worried about you guys failing, that's all. Who actually studies for these things? Rex puffed out his chest, then muttered his way back to his computer to play games. As he left, Leo smiled faintly, pulled out his phone, and sent a text to Isabelle. Hey, genius. We're studying again tomorrow, right? After that first trip to the library, Leo and Isabelle fell into a routine. For the next few weeks, aside from classes and work at the studio, they spent almost every evening studying together. Meanwhile, Starfall Studios was expanding rapidly. They were now running 5 different video accounts simultaneously, with the smallest one having already surpassed 1 million followers. Ironically, the new account that Sean Shao had so vehemently opposed was now their second most popular channel, its follower count trailing only behind the main Starfall account. It was definitive proof that Leo's strategy had been correct. Ruby, Quinn, and the others were ecstatic. Only Sean seemed to look more and more displeased every time he saw the new account's growth charts. With the main Starfall account hitting 3 million followers, Ruby, Yu, and Quinn Fan, as the on-screen talent, had become bona fide internet celebrities. Many students at USC who use TikTok were shocked to discover that the stars of the viral Starfall videos were seniors at their own university. Ruby and Quinn were often stopped on campus by fans asking for pictures. One afternoon, on the day before Christmas Eve, Leo drove to the studio after class. Sean had called him earlier to say that a potential investor was coming that evening to discuss a deal. As the majority shareholder, Leo had to be there. When he walked in, he saw Ruby sitting on a sofa, smiling as she scrolled through her phone. Seeing him, she let out her signature deep laugh and stood up. Leo, when you first asked me and Quinn to be the on-screen talent, it was just to save money on actors. I never thought we'd actually become famous. Haha, Ruby, you can probably drop your creative director duties soon and just focus on filming, Leo laughed back. As the faces of the channel, Ruby and Quinn received a percentage of the account's profits in addition to their regular studio dividends. Besides Leo and Sean, they were the highest earners in the company. Ruby laughed again, her chest heaving in a way that made Leo feel a bit awkward, forcing him to look away. After a moment, she draped an arm over his shoulder. You know, Leo, the best part about being famous is all the female fans I get to meet. They're so pretty, and it's so easy to get their numbers. Some of them even hit on me first. Leo's mind went blank. All right, I've heard of male influencers dating their female fans. I have never heard of a female influencer dating her female fans. And not just one, apparently. Are you trying to turn your fan club into a personal harem? After his bizarre conversation with Ruby, Leo did a lap around the office. Some of the editors, including Mark Zhang, were still working late. Leo walked over to Mark's desk, cleared his throat, and said in a low voice, "Mark, how's that thing we talked about going?" Mark looked up, then realized Leo was asking about recruiting talent from his old company. "I was just about to tell you," Mark said. "After we talked, I contacted a few of my old colleagues. It turns out my old company hasn't had a single hit since I left. A lot of my former coworkers have had their performance bonuses cut, or they're getting nothing at all. I told them you were offering double their current salary to jump ship, and a bunch of them said if the offer is real, they're ready to leave anytime." Leo nodded thoughtfully. "Okay, how many people are we talking about? What are their skills? Are they more professional than Dawn?" "I've got 4 confirmed yes, and another 5 or 6 are on the fence. You don't have to worry about their skills. We were on the same team before I left and worked on several viral videos together. I can say with confidence that they're as good as anyone we have here now." Mark paused, then added, "Oh, and when I met with them, they mentioned a few other media companies have been trying to poach them, but the salary offers weren't as good." Leo wasn't surprised. He'd done extensive market research a month ago. With TikTok's user base exploding, it was on track to become the most dominant app in the country within 2 years. Anyone with half a brain could see that short-form video was the future. Media companies were popping up everywhere, and the demand for skilled editors was skyrocketing. Editors with a proven track record of creating viral content were prime targets for major players. "All right, Mark, get a final count of who's willing to come over in the next few days. Then give me their contact information." "Will do." After speaking with Mark, Leo headed to the main conference room. He found Sean inside, organizing documents. "Sean," Leo said, "who are these investors we're meeting tonight?" "To be honest, I don't know much. They contacted me by phone, just said they're a company from New York. I tried to get more details, but they were very direct and insisted on an in-person meeting. They said they have a strong interest in investing in Starfall." Huh. Leo was a little taken aback by the strangeness of it all. Before they could discuss it further, Sean's phone buzzed. "Get ready. They're here," and is bringing them up from the lobby now. Leo and Sean took their seats, joined by Don Run and Quinn Fan. About 10 minutes later, they heard footsteps outside. The door opened, and their assistant, and spoke respectfully. "Mr. Archer, Mr. Lee, please come in. Our bosses are waiting." Leo and the others stood up as a sign of respect. As the men walked in, Leo's eyes fell on the lead investor, and his expression froze. Landon Archer." When Leo recognized the lead investor, his jaw dropped. He never would have imagined it would be Landon Archer. Landon, however, showed no surprise at seeing Leo. He simply smiled warmly. "Leo, it's been a while." His tone was calm, tinged with what seemed like genuine pleasure at their reunion. Sean and the others looked on, confused, trying to piece together the relationship between Leo and the man who wanted to invest in their company. It was clear they knew each other. Landon noticed their confusion, but just smiled without offering an explanation. His assistant, Riley Lee, adjusted his glasses and made the formal introduction. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Riley Lee, and this is Mr. Landon Archer of the Archer Corporation. Mr. Archer has a keen interest in the new media industry, and our company is currently establishing a division in that sector. He recently became aware of Starfall Studios' rapid growth and wanted to come see for himself if there was an opportunity for investment." Sean, though still processing the connection between Leo and Landon, quickly put on a professional smile. After Landon and Riley were seated, Sean began his presentation on the studio. As he spoke, Leo watched Landon, his initial shock giving way to a cool-headed analysis. He had questions, but decided to wait for the formalities to conclude. Landon listened intently, asking sharp, insightful questions that revealed a deep understanding of the industry. Nearly an hour later, after an in-depth discussion, Riley leaned over and whispered something to Landon, who nodded in agreement. Riley then smiled at Leo and Sean. "Mr. Yeager, Mr. Shao, Mr. Archer is very impressed with Starfall Studios' achievements and potential. We've covered all the preliminary questions. If you have no further issues, we can proceed to discussing the specifics of the investment. Sean and the others held their breath. They couldn't believe it was going so smoothly. They had spent weeks trying to secure funding, only to be bogged down by endless problems with other potential investors. Yet here was the Archer Corporation, a corporate giant with national influence, ready to close a deal after a single meeting. While Sean and the others were thrilled, Leo frowned. He spoke first. Mr. Archer, before we talk specifics, could we have a word in private? Despite their history, this was a formal business setting. Leo wasn't about to be so informal as to use Landon's first name in front of everyone. Landon smiled. Of course. Under the bewildered gazes of Sean and the team, Leo and Landon left the conference room. Once they were outside, Leo looked at him with a complicated expression. Before he could speak, Landon beat him to it. Leo, I know what you're thinking. You don't have to worry. Isabelle never told me about your studio. I'm not choosing to invest in you as a favor to her. Landon had answered his unspoken question. Leo looked at him, surprised. After a moment of thought, he asked, That's hard to believe. Our studio is nothing to a company like yours. We wouldn't even dream of approaching a corporation of your size for funding, let alone have you come to us. Leo, what Riley said in there is the truth. I've just returned to the country to begin taking over my family's business. As you know, the biggest trend in media right now is short-form video. I was already preparing to enter this market before I came back. While scouting for fast-growing studios, I came across yours. The reason I chose you is, admittedly, because we know each other. There are many excellent studios out there, and for me, investing in any one of them would serve my purpose. So why not invest in you? Landon paused, then smiled. This way, I achieve my goal, and I can help you at the same time. Don't worry. As close as I am with Isabelle, I understand a man's pride. This is a purely professional investment. You don't need to feel burdened by it. Hearing Landon's sincere explanation and seeing the straightforward look in his eyes, Leo realized he might have been overthinking things. As Landon said, if they were going to invest in someone, why not Starfall? After a moment of silence, Leo finally relaxed. I understand. He didn't dwell on it any longer. He knew Starfall was a powerhouse on TikTok right now, a dominant force. Even if he and Landon had never met, they still would have had a shot at this investment. After finalizing the investment deal with Landon, Leo's life became a whirlwind of activity. He was finally able to catch his breath on the evening of the university's New Year's Eve gala, just before the holiday break. That evening, he went to pick up Isabelle from her dorm. As he neared the building, he saw her jogging out, dressed in a stylish white down jacket. In the dim evening light, she scanned the area, not seeing him at first. She stood by the curb, her expression cool as she pulled out her phone, presumably to text him. She tilted her head down, her beautiful face partially hidden by the high collar of her jacket, her slender fingers tapping at the screen. The cold must have been getting to her, because she kept making typos, which made her stomp her foot in frustration. The sight made Leo chuckle. He quickened his pace. No need to text. I'm here! Exclamation point. Isabelle's head snapped up, her eyes instantly brightening when she saw him. Leo took her small, cold hand, exposed from her attempts to text, and tucked it into his pocket. Come on, let's go see the gala. Isabelle nodded softly, then lifted her chin, her voice carrying its usual cool tone. Okay, but after, I want to go to the clock tower to see the fireworks. Oh, how did you know there are fireworks at the clock tower tonight? Leo asked, surprised. Isabelle hummed. Haley told me. She said you absolutely have to take me to see the fireworks. Why? Isabelle pursed her lips, her eyes shimmering. Because she said, the New Year's bang is the best one. The New Year's bang? Haley, what the hell are you teaching my innocent girlfriend? Hearing the phrase, both a noun and a verb, from Isabelle's lips made Leo's heart skip a beat. But one look at her face, which held nothing but pure anticipation for the fireworks, told him she was completely oblivious to the double entendre. She was just excited to watch the New Year's fireworks with him. He smiled and reached out to pinch her cheek. All right, the gala should be over around 10. We'll head straight there afterward. Okay. Leo took her hand, and they walked toward the auditorium where the gala was being held. The event was a big deal at U of C, so even with the holiday break starting, the place was packed with students who had chosen to stay on campus for the show. Most of them, like Rex Gao, were there for one reason. They'd heard the dance club was performing. When Leo and Isabelle entered, nearly every seat was taken except for a few in the front rows. Those were reserved. The first two for university administrators, and the next three for student government officers and performers. Leo scanned the room and led Isabelle confidently toward the front. A few days earlier, He'd received a message from Charles Chu, the student government president. Leo, if you're interested in coming to the New Year's gala, I can save a couple of seats for you up front. Leo had accepted immediately. If he was going to take Isabelle, he didn't want them to be stuck in the back. After he'd agreed, Charles had used the opportunity to chat a bit more. He'd quickly learned that several of the hottest accounts on TikTok were managed by Leo's studio and had been floored. Then, Charles had made a proposal. Leo, for the gala, each class needs a student representative to give a speech. The freshman class doesn't have any standout members in student government this year, so the spot is still open. If you don't mind, would you be our freshman representative? You could talk about your experiences with your startup. It would solve a problem for me with the Student Affairs Office and also inspire other students to get involved in entrepreneurship. Since Charles was giving them front row seats, and it was a great chance to make a good impression on the university leadership, Leo had agreed. Now, he led Isabelle to the third row and was about to sit down when she paused. I need to use the restroom real quick. All right, Leo nodded. After she left, he sat down and scrolled through his phone. A moment later, someone sat down in the seat he had saved for Isabelle. Leo frowned and looked up, ready to tell the person the seat was taken. But when he saw who it was, he paused. It was Nina Ning, the girl from the meeting. She smiled at him, a hint of confidence in her eyes. Leo, we meet again. Are you in the student government too? Nina shook her head. No, Ethan is a VP, but he's backstage helping with logistics, so he gave me his seat. Leo just said, oh, and was about to explain that she was in someone else's seat when she spoke again. Why did you reject my friend request last time? Oh, that. I told President Yu to just make a group chat, so we could all discuss things there. I didn't realize you would add me personally. So that was you? My bad, Leo said, his face a mask of feigned ignorance. He couldn't very well tell her. Ethan has a massive crush on you, and I didn't want to break his heart. But Nina wasn't satisfied. She crossed her arms, her brow furrowed. But I put my name in the request message. Did you? I must have missed it. Leo was committed to playing dumb. Seeing his bland expression, Nina started to believe that maybe it really hadn't been intentional. She dropped the subject and changed her tone. I figured you'd be too busy with your startup to come to the gala. My studio is pretty stable now, and I have employees who handle the day-to-day work. I don't need to be there unless something major comes up. Nina, having no idea about the true scale of Starfall Studios, heard his words as pure bragging. Her opinion of him plummeted. She had thought he was capable and ambitious. Now he just seemed like any other guy, full of hot air, a freshman startup, stable after just a few months, and he calls his friends employees to sound important. Her interest in him vanished. He was just another boring, pretentious guy using his startup as a way to show off. Nina simply replied, oh, and turned her attention to the stage, signaling the end of their conversation. But just then, she noticed him rubbing his nose, looking like he wanted to say something else. A cold smile touched her lips. Of course. My sudden disinterest caught him off guard, and now he's trying to get my attention again. She pretended not to notice. Finally, he spoke up. Nina, about that. Sorry, I'd like to watch the show quietly now. We can talk later. She cut him off coolly. Her frosty reaction seemed to surprise him, but he didn't seem to care why. No, I was just going to say this seat is taken. If you want to watch, you should probably find another spot. Nina's eyes widened in disbelief. This guy is so pathetic. After I called his bluff, he's resorting to this to get my attention. She had been trying to be polite, but this was too much. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. Are you serious, Leo? You don't have to use a childish excuse like this seat is taken to get my attention. Leo stared at her dumbfounded. His brain short-circuited. Get your attention? Who the hell are you? Another S-tier, main character, I guess. The seat really is taken. Could you please move? Yeah, if you're gonna be like that, fine, I'll move, she said with a dismissive laugh, grabbing her bag. But just so, you know, this little act of yours is really cringe. Just as she stood up, Leo's eyes lit up, and he smiled and waved at someone behind her. You're back. Come on, the show's about to start. Nina froze and turned around. Walking toward them was a girl so beautiful she seemed unreal, her expression cool and aloof. Nina stood there, rooted to the spot, completely at a loss. The next second, she heard Leo's voice again. Ahem. See? I told you someone was sitting here. This is my girlfriend's seat. I wasn't lying. Gee, girlfriend. The word hit Nina like a physical blow, and her mind went completely blank. Nina stared blankly at the impossibly beautiful girl walking toward her, a wave of complex emotions washing over her. She had assumed Leo was just another arrogant guy trying to impress her with childish tactics. She never imagined. So, he didn't add me because he was worried his girlfriend would see. The realization sent a hot flush crawling up her neck. Thinking back on her own behavior and the condescending things she'd said, Nina suddenly wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. By now, Isabelle had reached them, giving Nina a curious glance. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second before Nina turned and fled, not daring to look back at Leo. She finally understood that he had been trying to save her face the entire time, while she had been the one making a fool of herself. Tonight, it seemed, she had become the opening act for Leo's New Year's entertainment. After Nina's hasty departure, Isabelle sat down next to Leo. A few minutes later, the gala officially began. After a brief opening from the hosts, the first act took the stage. Midway through the show, Leo was surprised to see a familiar face among the performers. "Is that Zoe Chong?" "Mitchum, that's Zoe," Isabelle confirmed with a nod. As Zoe and the other members of the dance club began their performance, a wave of murmurs and gasps went through the male portion of the audience. Because Zoe was, well, she was very distracting. Even Leo found his eyes drawn to her. He was watching, mesmerized, when his vision suddenly went black. "Don't look, Zoe is a bad person." Hearing Isabelle's soft but firm voice, Leo froze. She had covered his eyes with her hand. He cleared his throat and gently pulled her hand away, revealing her pouting, indignant face. He couldn't help but laugh. Okay, I won't look," he promised. Isabelle's expression softened slightly, but she still watched him like a hawk, her eyes sharp. On stage, Zoe and the others continued their stunning performance, earning thunderous applause. Leo, however, didn't dare look at the stage again. As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew more and more festive. Soon, Leo's phone buzzed with a message from Charles Chu. "Leo, there are 3 acts left. You're the freshman rep, so you'll be the first speaker. You should head backstage now to get ready." Leo texted back a quick, "Okay," and turned to Isabelle. "Hey, you wait here for me, all right? I have to give a speech, but it'll be quick." "Oh." Leo went backstage and reviewed his speech notes. Soon, the final performance ended, and the host announced the student representative speeches, starting with freshman Leo Yeager. Taking a deep breath, Leo walked confidently onto the stage. The audience watched him with curiosity. He tapped the microphone and began, his voice calm and steady. "Good evening, faculty and fellow students. My name is Leo Yeager, and I'm the freshman representative for the business school." His speech wasn't long, mostly covering the points Charles had suggested, his journey as an entrepreneur, the challenges he'd faced, and so on. As he spoke, his gaze kept drifting to where Isabelle was sitting. In the audience, she listened intently, her eyes fixed on him. In that moment, he seemed to be glowing with a special light, and her adoring gaze was practically melting. Meanwhile, in the back of the auditorium, Rex Gao was having a full-blown meltdown. "Holy crap. Is that Leo? Damn it, when did that son of a bitch become our freshman representative? Since when do they let dogs on stage to give speeches? Is there no justice in this world? Seriously, Leo, you magnificent bastard. This is the most epic flex I've ever seen. I'm dying. I'm actually dying." Rex stared at the stage, where his roommate was speaking with a serious expression, and felt his soul leaving his body. If he had known starting a business came with this kind of opportunity to show off in front of the whole school, he would have launched a project even if it meant losing money. Beside him, Ned and Neo watched with pity as Rex hyperventilated. "Rex, let's go. If you watch any longer, I'm afraid you're going to pass out." After Leo's speech came the representatives from the other years. By then, the gala was essentially over. Wanting to get to the clock tower before midnight, Leo decided they should leave early. He took Isabelle's hand and led her out the back exit of the auditorium. As they stepped outside, a blast of cold air hit them, and then they saw it. It had started to snow. Flakes drifted down from the night sky, creating a dreamlike scene that made them both stop in their tracks. Isabelle held out her hand, catching a single snowflake. She watched it melt in her palm, a pure, sweet smile spreading across her face. Then she snuggled closer to Leo, wrapping both her arms around his, and tilted her head up to look at him, her eyes sparkling. "Leo," she whispered, "it's snowing. Leo, it's snowing." Hearing Isabelle's excited voice in his ear, Leo looked up at the night sky. The snow must have just started. The ground wasn't even fully wet yet. As he looked up, the streetlight illuminated a flurry that was coming down much harder than he'd thought. If it kept this up for another couple of hours, it would definitely start to stick. It was the first snow of the year in Crestview, which hadn't seen a single flake since last New Year's Day. If it lasted past midnight, it would also be the first snow of the coming year, 2019. Seeing Isabelle's delighted expression, Leo's heart filled with a gentle warmth. He couldn't help but pull her closer. Yeah, it is, he said. Looks like it'll last past midnight. The first snow of 2019. Isabelle tilted her head back, her eyes soft as she gazed at him. And the first snow I've ever watched with you. We should take the subway, Leo suggested. The crowd heading to Clock Tower Square for the fireworks is going to be insane. If we drive, we'll just get stuck in traffic. Okay. Isabelle didn't argue. She just held onto his arm, her body tucked close to his as they walked toward the campus exit. They moved slowly through the falling snow, flakes landing on their shoulders and hair, draping them in a thin white mantle. All along the campus paths, other couples were just as surprised and thrilled by the sudden snowfall. Leo could already picture the social media posts that would flood everyone's feeds after midnight. Here's to the promises we make in the snow, and all the tomorrows to come. Snow in our hair now, silver in our hair later. At least we're getting old together. You and the snow arrived together to welcome 2019. By the time they reached the subway station nearest to the university, a fine layer of white had dusted their hair. A crowd was gathered near the entrance, where an artificial Christmas tree had been set up. People were taking pictures beside it. It was nothing special, but the falling snow seemed to cast a magical filter over everything, making even the most ordinary things feel enchanting. Just then, a familiar Maybach pulled up to the curb, and Lester stepped out from the driver's seat. Isabelle's face lit up with surprise. Her mouth opened slightly. Lester. Lester smiled warmly. Miss Thornton, Mr. Yeager. I take it you're heading to Clock Tower Square for the fireworks. Huh. Isabelle was confused. She hadn't called him. She and Leo had already decided to take the subway. Noticing their puzzled expressions, Lester looked a bit sheepish. Ahem, well, I saw the forecast earlier said it might snow tonight. And it being New Year's Eve, I figured you two would want to go see the fireworks. I was just thinking, with the snow, it might be a bit dangerous for Mr. Yeager to be driving while also trying to talk to you and keep the car from sliding. So, I waited near the campus gates, figuring if you were heading to the square, I could be there for you right away. He paused, then continued. I saw you two leave campus just now, but you were heading straight for the subway, so I hurried over. The explanation cleared everything up. Isabelle bit her lip and said in her cool tone, Lester, Leo, and I are taking the subway. Leo nodded in agreement. Yeah, Lester, you don't have to worry about us. It's going to be packed over there. We'd probably just get stuck in traffic if we drove. But Lester shook his head. No, that's what everyone thinks, so the roads actually aren't that busy. The subway, on the other hand, is probably a madhouse. I checked the traffic reports, and it's really not bad. Please, Miss Thornton, Mr. Yeager, let me drive you. Leo glanced toward the subway entrance. A steady stream of excited people was flowing down the stairs. He realized Lester was probably right. The trains would be crammed, while the number of people driving or taking Ubers will be much lower. Finally, Leo nodded. All right, let's have Lester take us, he said to Isabelle. If we can't get a seat on the train, we'll be standing for an hour to get there. Okay, she murmured, her eyes crinkling at the corners. The drive over was just as Lester had predicted, not congested at all. The snow had convinced less confident drivers to stay home, thinning out the traffic even more. Around 11:10, they arrived near Clock Tower Square. To get to the best viewing spot for the fireworks, they'd have to walk the rest of the way. The area at the base of the tower was already teeming with people who had staked out their spots, waiting for the midnight countdown. Miss Thornton, Mr. Yeager, this is as far as the car can go. We'll get out here, Leo said, opening the door for Isabelle. After they were out, he shut the door, then seemed to remember something. He turned back to Lester. Hey, why don't you park the car? There's a spot right over there. You can come watch the fireworks with us. Oh, Mr. Yeager, you and Miss Thornton should go. I wouldn't want to intrude, Lester replied, looking flattered but hesitant. Leo shook his head. It's no problem. It's not like you can drive out of here right now anyway. You're already here. Might as well enjoy it. Well, Lester, you can take pictures of me and Leo, Isabelle chimed in, her voice crisp and clear as she handed him her phone. Lester froze for a second, then a look of genuine emotion crossed his face. Of course, Miss Thornton. Leave it to me. After Lester parked the car, he joined them, and the three of them moved with the crowd toward the square. The closer they got to the clock tower, the denser the crowd became, the air buzzing with excitement. It was a sea of people, shoulder to shoulder, their laughter and chatter mixing into a joyous roar. The surrounding lights glittered, catching the gently falling snowflakes and creating a dreamlike atmosphere. The crowd was so thick that they barely moved more than a few feet in half an hour. With less than 20 minutes until midnight, the snow began to fall even harder. A layer of it had already settled on Leo's hair and shoulders. He raised a hand to brush the snow from Isabelle's hair, but just as he did, she looked up at him, her eyes fixed on his. The usual coolness in her expression was gone, replaced by a tenderness and shyness he had never seen before. Her eyes sparkled like stars. A sweet smile spread across her face, and her voice was as soft as the falling snow. Snow in our hair now, silver in our hair later. Leo, do you think we'll really be together until then? Until we're actually old and gray? Leo's breath caught. A slow smile spread across his lips as he gently brushed the snowflakes from her hair. Of course we will. The snow swirled around them, and the crowd roared with life, but in that moment, it felt as if he and Isabelle were in a world of their own. As the minutes ticked by, the anticipation in the square grew. Cheers erupted as people pulled out their phones, countdown apps at the ready. Vendors weaving through the crowd sold colorful, light-up balloons, which people held aloft, waiting for the final moment. Lester, get ready with the picture, Isabelle reminded him. Yes, miss, don't you worry, Lester said, his expression serious. A bead of sweat trickled down his forehead. He was terrified of messing up the shot. Just as he was steeling his nerves, a female voice cut through the noise. Lester. A moment later, the voice called out again. Wait, Isabelle? Leo. It was Haley Xia. Her face was a mask of surprise, which quickly morphed into pure excitement when she saw the three of them. She'd known Isabelle would be spending New Year's Eve with Leo, so she had come to the square with Zoe and Jesse to watch the fireworks. She never imagined there would be this many people. They had gotten separated almost as soon as they'd left the subway station, and the crowd was so dense she hadn't been able to find them. To make matters worse, the cell service was non-existent. With midnight approaching, Haley had started to panic. Spotting Leo's group was a miracle. Leo and Isabelle were standing in front of Lester, so they hadn't noticed her. Haley saw the phone in Lester's hands and instinctively asked, Lester, are you taking a picture of them? Yes. This is the first time my miss has ever entrusted me with such a task. Haley giggled. Here, let me do it. Your angle is all wrong. The picture won't turn out very well. Lester hesitated for a moment before handing her the phone. Just as Haley took it, the final 1-minute countdown began. The energy of the crowd reached a fever pitch as thousands of voices joined together. 10, 9, 8, 7, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! At the stroke of midnight, hands opened, releasing a kaleidoscope of balloons that floated up into the snowy sky. At the same time, a firework shot upwards with a piercing whistle and exploded, painting the night with brilliant color. Leo held Isabelle's hand as she leaned her head against his shoulder. She bit her lip and whispered, so softly only he could hear, Leo, I love you so much. Leo, I love you so much. Her heartfelt words, a perfect echo of her thoughts, nearly melted him on the spot. Click, click, click. Haley seized the moment, snapping a burst of photos. The roaring crowd, the exploding fireworks, the ascending balloons. It all became a breathtaking backdrop for the two of them. Afterward, Haley stared at the photos, her cheeks flushed. Beautiful, she muttered, scrolling through them. Just so beautiful. They look like the main characters in a K-drama. Oh my God, I could live off this photo for a year. Lester leaned in to look. After a moment of hesitation, he asked sheepishly, Miss Xia, if you happen to back up that photo, could you possibly send me a copy? Haley looked at him, surprised. Lester, don't tell me you're a shipper, too? He looked momentarily confused, then gave an awkward laugh. No, not at all. I just think Miss Thornton and Mr. Yeager look so wonderful together. I'd like to have it as a memento. I could show it to the missus one day. Leo and Isabelle, lost in the moment, watched the fireworks in quiet contentment. Behind them, Lester and Haley were busy exchanging contact information. No one noticed the girl standing a short distance away in the crowd, staring at Leo and Isabelle's backs. Her fists were clenched so tightly her knuckles were white, and tears welled in her eyes. Chloe bit her lip, a wave of bitterness and regret washing over her. A tear escaped, sliding silently down her cheek. Why? She thought. Why him? Isabelle showed up so much later, so why did he choose her without a second thought? I'm his childhood friend. Why won't he give me a chance? It was just one stupid mistake, something any girl would have done. The fireworks lasted for over 10 minutes. When the show was over, Leo and Isabelle turned around and finally spotted Haley. What are you doing here? Leo asked, raising an eyebrow in surprise. Haley grinned, holding up the phone. Just happened to run into you guys and decided to be your personal photographer. Isabelle, look at these pictures. They're gorgeous. Isabelle took the phone, and as she looked at the photos, a genuine smile spread across her face, her eyes filled with pleasure. Haley, you're the best. Well, 2019 just started, and I've already been friend-zoned. I must be the only one in the world, huh? Haley let out a series of honking laughs. Leo glanced around. Where's Zoe and Jesse? Aren't they with you? Oh shoot, I almost forgot. We got separated in the crowd. I've been looking for them forever. Anyway, I gotta go find them. You two have fun. Bye. With a wave, Haley disappeared back into the throng of people. After Haley left, Leo and Isabelle wandered around the square for a little while longer before deciding to head back. The snow was falling harder now, and a thick blanket had already covered the streets. Are you still going back to the estate tonight? Leo asked tentatively. The roads were icy, and the drive to the Thornton estate was an hour on a good day. In these conditions, it would take much longer and be far more dangerous. To his relief, Isabelle shook her head. I want to stay at the Maplewood tonight, she said softly. Okay. Leo let out a quiet sigh. Thank God, he thought. I have to go to the studio tomorrow. If we went to her place, she'd find some way to end up in my bed. My backup phone would be on and searching for a network all night long. How would I function at work tomorrow? No way. Lester drove them back to the Maplewood. Once they were back in their residential area, the streets were quiet and deserted, unlike the bustling city center. A pristine white carpet covered everything, shimmering under the soft glow of the streetlights. After getting out of the car, Leo and Isabelle walked hand in hand into the complex. The snow crunched under their boots, the sound sharp in the stillness of the night as they left a long trail of footprints behind them. As they neared their building, Isabelle suddenly stopped. She pulled her hand from his coat pocket and pointed. Leo followed her gaze and saw a basketball-sized snowman sitting by a planter. Before he could say anything, Isabelle let go of his hand and ran over to it, crouching down to get a better look. She studied it for a few seconds, then turned back to him, her eyes wide with anticipation. I want to make a snowman. Please. Faced with that hopeful, almost pleading expression, Leo caved instantly. He squatted down and began gathering snow. Although it had only been snowing for a few hours, the snowfall had been heavy, and there was plenty to work with. In just 10 minutes, he had rolled a fist-sized ball into one the size of a person's head. He pushed it over to Isabelle. This can be the head. I'll go make a bigger one for the body. He was about to turn away when Isabelle grabbed his arm. He looked at her, confused, as she took his hands, red and raw from rolling the snow, and brought them to her mouth, blowing warm air on them. She rubbed them gently for a moment before letting go, giving him an encouraging look. Go on. Her simple, unexpected gesture melted his heart. He gave her a fond look and went back to work. A few minutes later, he returned with a much larger snowball, which he carefully placed beside the first one. Isabelle looked at the two snowballs with delight. She stacked them, then used twigs and small pebbles she found nearby for the eyes, mouth, and nose. As the snowman took shape, she giggled. Leo, you're so childish. Still playing with snowmen at your age. Leo blinked, staring at her blankly. A middle-aged couple happened to be walking past, looking over at them with curiosity. Isabelle's voice was just loud enough for them to hear. Wait, he thought. You were the one who wanted to build it. How did this become my idea? I didn't. You did, she said, lifting her chin with an air of cool indifference, refusing to admit a thing. When the snowman was finished, Isabelle crouched beside their creation, the pure joy on her face impossible to hide. Watching her, Leo felt a pang of sadness. It wasn't that he'd never built a snowman before, but doing it with his girlfriend was a different experience. Still, he wasn't this ecstatic. The reason she was so happy, he realized, was probably because she had never done this before. Her childhood had been a lonely one without friends. That was why building one snowman could bring her so much joy. They played in the snow for a little while longer, but Leo worried that if they stayed out too long, she'd catch a cold. Let's go up, he said. The snow will probably be deeper in the morning. We can build a bigger one then. It's too cold now. Okay. Isabelle nodded, getting up and following him toward the building. After a few steps, she couldn't resist looking back at their snowman, her eyes curving into happy crescents. Once upstairs, Leo naturally followed her into 1003. The moment they stepped inside, a wave of warmth washed over them. The sudden shift from cold to hot made his head spin for a second. He stood there, dazed, then turned to switch on the water dispenser. When it was hot, he poured a cup and handed it to Isabelle. Drink some hot water. We were out in the cold for a long time. MHM. She took the cup, holding it in front of her face and taking small sips. Leo sat beside her, rubbing his hands together. He hadn't worn gloves while building the snowman, and his hands were still freezing. If she weren't there, he would have resorted to the time-honored male technique of rapid hand warming. Click. Suddenly, the world went black. In the next second, Isabelle let out a startled cry and threw herself into his arms without warning. Forget a girl being scared. The sudden darkness made even Leo's heart skip a beat. But he lived alone long enough to have dealt with this before, so he quickly calmed down. Once his eyes adjusted, he gently patted her back. "It's okay," he whispered. "Probably just a circuit issue. It should come back on in a minute. You sit here. I'll go check the breaker box. Maybe it just tripped." He started to get up, intending to head for the kitchen. The apartment layouts in the Maplewood were all identical, and he remembered his breaker box was just above the kitchen doorway. Hers would be in the same place. But before he could stand, Isabelle's grip on him tightened. Her voice, soft and breathy, came from the darkness. "Wait, I want to hug you." "Huh?" Leo's mind flashed. "I think I've seen this movie before. A condo, a snowy night, a man, a woman, a couch, a blackout." He felt her soft body press against his. Her face nestled into the crook of his neck. Her hair brushed against his nose, and a jolt went through him. He took a deep breath, cupped her face, and kissed her. In the dark, Isabelle was momentarily stunned, but then she responded with equal fervor. Anyone who's made out in the dark knows it's 100 times more intense than when you can see. He soon felt her body go limp in his arms, as if her bones had turned to liquid. He wrapped one arm around her waist, his hand landing on the strap of her bra. His breath hitched. In a moment of devilish impulse, all gentlemanly thoughts fled his mind. He fumbled with the clasp and unhooked it. He felt the frantic, powerful thumping of her heart against his palm. It wasn't something he heard. It was something he felt, a raw, pulsing rhythm under his fingertips. Isabelle's mind went completely blank. Though their lips were still locked, her brain had short-circuited. Her hands, which had been clutching his shirt, tightened their grip, her nails digging into the fabric. But Leo didn't pull away. If anything, the sensation made him bolder, and his hand pressed a little firmer. That was when Isabelle snapped back to reality. She let out a soft whimper. "Your hand is cold." Hearing her voice, the fog of passion in Leo's mind began to clear. Realizing what he'd done, he yanked his hand back as if he'd been burned. His face was on fire. "Oh hell, the lights go out, and all my demons come out to play. Why does my hand have a mind of its own? And when did it learn to be so damn handsy?" Leo swallowed hard. He could still feel the residual warmth from her heartbeat on his left palm, which had been ice cold from the snow just moments before. The power was still out. The apartment was dark and silent, save for the sound of Isabelle's soft, ragged breathing. Leo started to speak, his voice raspy. But before he could get another word out, Isabelle let out a small, weak hum. "More," she whispered. The last vestiges of his self-control, which had been slowly reasserting themselves, evaporated in an instant. Ding-dong. Just as his hand was starting to warm up again, the doorbell rang, shattering their lip service. Startled, Leo shot up from the couch like a released spring. Then, he heard Lester's voice drift through the door. "Miss, it's Lester. Are you asleep? You left your phone in the car." "It's Lester," Isabelle whispered, her voice laced with panic and a hint of a whine. It took Leo a second to process. He took 2 deep breaths, then said awkwardly, I'll get the door." Wait, I need to hook my bra." Leo knew exactly what she was talking about. He could practically feel her mortification radiating through the darkness. A moment later, she whispered, "Okay, I'm decent." Leo walked to the door and opened it to find Lester standing there, holding Isabelle's phone. Upon seeing Leo, Lester's expression shifted instantly. He stammered, Mr. Yeager, you're here too." Leo scratched his head, forcing a casual tone. "Hi, I was just about to leave, but then the power went out. See? It's pitch black." Lester peered into the apartment, a flicker of suspicion in his eyes for the first time. "Mr. Yeager, is it really a power outage?" Leo found his question odd. Usually, Lester would be offering to fix the problem immediately. This time, his reaction felt different. But Leo nodded anyway. "Yeah, it is. All right then. Well, Mr. Yeager, let me take a look. It's best you don't touch anything. Breaker boxes can be dangerous." Lester then called politely into the apartment. "Miss, you left your phone in my car." "Mr. Yeager said the power is out. It may be a trip breaker. May I come in and check for you?" "MHM." Isabelle's soft reply came from inside. With her permission, Lester smiled at Leo, handed him the phone, and went into the kitchen, leaving the front door open. A moment later, the lights flickered and then blazed back to life. "Mr. Yeager, miss, it looks like the breaker is a bit old, so the unstable voltage caused it to trip." Lester emerged from the kitchen, looking flustered. "Well, if there's nothing else, I'll be on my way." Mr. Yeager, have a good night." He hurried to the door, but then stopped as if remembering something. He turned back, his expression apologetic as he looked at Leo. "Mr. Yeager, I'm truly sorry." Leo stared back, completely baffled. Sorry? What was he apologizing for? Before Leo could figure it out, Lester was gone. Once again, it was just the two of them in the apartment. The memory of what he'd done during the blackout made Leo feel incredibly guilty. He didn't dare look at her. Suddenly, the phone he was still holding rang. He glanced down and saw Haley's name on the screen. He cleared his throat. It's Haley. Probably calling to see if we got home safe." "Okay," Isabelle murmured. She walked over, head down, and took the phone from his hand. "Hello, Haley." As Isabelle started talking, Leo took his cue and slipped out of 1003, quietly closing the door behind him. Back in the hallway, he let out a huge sigh of relief. He looked down at his left hand, and his breathing hitched. Soft. Back in his own apartment, Leo sat on the couch in a daze for a long time before finally getting up to wash his face. When he looked in the mirror, he froze. In an instant, he understood Lester's strange behavior and his final, cryptic apology. Reflected in the mirror was his own face, his mouth smeared with lipstick. "So when I opened the door, Lester saw me and knew exactly what we were doing." Leo's breath caught in his throat. It was the most socially catastrophic moment of his life. "Lester, you're a dead man," he thought. "You know too much." The next morning, Leo woke up at 8. He went to the window and saw that the snow hadn't stopped all night. The world outside was a blanket of white. "Wow, it must have snowed all night," he murmured. He was glad they hadn't driven back. The roads were bound to be treacherous. Looking out at the winter wonderland, his mind drifted back to the previous night in 1003. A smile touched his lips before he quickly suppressed it. While getting ready, he scrolled through the messages in the Starfall Studios employee group chat. Now that the team was growing, they had a separate chat for work reports. Per Sean Zhao's instructions, the first thing everyone did each morning was post the overnight data and video completion rates. Of course, being New Year's Day, there were only a few people working. Mark Zhang and 2 other editors were taking the holiday shift to get some time off later. After he finished getting ready, Leo sent a text to Isabelle. "Heading to the studio. Have some work to take care of. I'll come get you this afternoon when I'm done." He didn't expect a reply right away. They had gone to bed after 2 in the morning. She was probably still curled up under the covers. To his surprise, when he opened his apartment door, a figure immediately launched itself into his arms. "Whoa!" Leo looked down to see Isabelle, looking adorable in fluffy, bunny-eared slippers and a fuzzy pajama set. Her hair was a bit messy, and her face was flushed with sleep, giving her a slightly dazed look. "What are you doing up so early?" "Woke up to use the bathroom and saw your text." She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "And I kind of missed you." It was the first time she had ever said those words to him. It sent a jolt through his chest. He squeezed her cheek gently. "Okay, one hug, then back to bed. It's freezing out here. You'll get sick." But Isabelle just snuggled deeper into his embrace, shaking her head. "Don't want to sleep anymore," she mumbled. "Take me with you to your studio. It snowed all night. The roads are probably all ice, so I'm taking the subway. Besides, it's cold, and you'll just be bored sitting there by yourself. Be good and stay home. I'll take you out this afternoon when I'm back." "No, I want to go. I can be quiet and just watch you work." Seeing the stubborn set of her jaw, Leo paused. He realized this was the first time she had ever pushed back so firmly against something he'd said. A thought struck him, and he finally nodded. "All right, go get changed. I'll take you with me." "Okay." A bright smile lit up her face, and she quickly went back to her apartment. Leo stood in the hallway, watching her go, a pensive look on his face. He could guess what that was about. When she was little, she had probably begged her father just like that, asking to go to the office with him, and she had probably been told no every single time. He sighed, a wave of tenderness washing over him. He knew that their relationship wasn't just about giving her a new sense of security and love. It was also about healing the parts of her childhood that were missing. A few minutes later, Isabelle emerged, dressed in a long down coat, a white beret, a scarf, and boots. He couldn't see what she was wearing underneath the long coat, but she was bundled up enough that he wasn't worried about her getting cold. She bit her lip, then habitually tucked her hand into his coat pocket. Lifting her chin, she announced in her classic cool tone, "Let's go." Leo couldn't help but smile. "Let's go." A blast of cold air hit them as they stepped out of the building. The entire complex was white, but it was alive with the sound of children running and laughing, all wearing mittens and packing snowballs. The scene made Leo nostalgic. Just a couple of years ago, on snowy days like this, he, Kevin, and Miles would have spent the night at a gaming lounge. He remembered one time when they emerged after an all-nighter and Kevin, to wake him up, had grabbed a handful of snow and shoved it down the back of his neck. As he and Isabelle walked toward the exit, they saw the snowman they had built the night before. Crouched beside it were two little girls, busy building a smaller companion for it. Leo saw the wistful, eager look in Isabelle's eyes. "You want to build another one?" he asked softly. "No, I'm just a little jealous of them." Isabelle's gaze was fixed on the two girls, a sad look on her face. He knew she was thinking of her own childhood, one where there was never anyone to build a snowman with. Soon, they were on the subway. The train wasn't crowded, and they found a quiet corner to stand in. Isabelle stayed close to him, her eyes darting around, curious about everything. An hour later, they arrived at the station near the studio. The snow was still falling gently. Leo took her to a McDonald's for some oatmeal first. Then, they headed up to the office. When he pushed the door open, he saw that, as expected, only Mark Zhang and the two other editors were at their desks. They all looked up at the sound of the door. "Happy New Year, Mr. Yeager," they said in unison. Then the two editors, who hadn't met Isabelle before, stared at her, completely captivated by her stunning beauty. "You too," Leo replied. "Keep up the good work." "Hey, is Sean here today?" "Yeah, he's in his office," Mark said. In the entire studio, only Leo and Sean had their own offices. He led Isabelle to his. "Here, you can wait here. If you get bored, feel free to use my computer to watch a movie. I'm going to go talk to Sean about a few things." "Imagine." Isabelle nodded obediently. Leo then turned and walked toward Sean Zhao's office. "Knock, knock, knock. Come in." Leo opened the door and smiled. "Sean, Happy New Year." "Leo, it's New Year's Day. Shouldn't you be out with your girlfriend?" Sean looked surprised to see him. Leo chuckled. "That was the plan, but work comes first. She insisted on coming along, though, so I brought her. She's in my office right now." A knowing look crossed Sean's face. "Sounds like she's pretty attached to you." "Yeah, a little," Leo said, scratching his head sheepishly. Then he asked, "What about you? Why aren't you with your girlfriend?" Sean's expression flickered for a moment. She's with her family for the holiday. I didn't have anything else to do, so I came in. Anyway, you said you had work to discuss. What's up?" Seeing Sean pivot to business, Leo got straight to the point. "So, we've been working on building out the different departments and getting the trademarks and business licenses registered. You've been handling most of that, which is great. I've been thinking, and I want to start poaching some experienced editors and scriptwriters who have a track record of creating viral videos." "Viral hits? I've thought about that too, but unless we offer them huge salaries, there's no way they'll come to us. We're still just a studio, not even a small company yet. They'd have no reason to make the jump." "I know, but if we can show them Starfall's potential and offer them enough money, we can make it happen." Leo went on to explain his history with Mark Zhang and his plan to have Mark reach out to his former colleagues. When he finished, Sean was frowning, deep in thought. After a long silence, he finally said gravely, "Leo, I can't get behind this plan. You're talking about poaching at least 10 people and offering them all double their current salaries. The studio can't afford that right now. These top-tier writers and editors make, what, 80 to 120,000 a year? Plus bonuses. We'd be adding over $50,000 a month to our payroll." He paused, then added, "And if our current employees find out about these massive salaries, they'll be furious. It could cause a huge problem. They've produced viral hits for us, too, but they're not making anywhere near that kind of money." "That's an easy fix," Leo countered, having already considered it. "Lots of big companies have policies against employees discussing salaries. We just put in their contracts. Besides, salaries in technical roles like this fluctuate a lot. It's not uncommon to have 10 people at a similar skill level all making different amounts." Sean saw the determination on Leo's face and realized he had already made up his mind. It was the same look he'd had during the vote about what type of content the studio should focus on next. Sean's expression soured. He was starting to see a pattern. On many things, Leo gave him complete autonomy. But when Leo decided on something, he would push it through, no matter what. He would consult with Sean, but the consultation was really just a notification. Whether Sean agreed or not wouldn't change the final outcome. Another executive decision, Sean thought with an internal sigh. "Leo, let me think about this. An extra 50 grand a month in payroll is no small thing. For Starfall right now, it's something we need to discuss very carefully." "Sure, no problem," Leo nodded. He was about to change the subject and bring up Landon Archer's investment when a headline on Sean's computer screen caught his eye. Sean had a financial news site open, and Leo instantly recognized the name Thornton Industries. Sources have revealed that industry giant Thornton Industries has reported losses across multiple projects in recent months, sparking widespread concern. The conglomerate, known for its aggressive expansion and solid market position backed by substantial capital and a professional team, has recently seen several major projects fail to meet profit expectations, some incurring significant losses. Industry analysts suggest the downturn may be linked to current economic uncertainties and a series of unforeseen market factors. As of now, Thornton Industries chairman Richard Thornton has made no public statement on the matter. Leo's eyes scanned the article, his brow furrowing. He was stunned. Isabelle's family company has been losing money for months. Leo, what's wrong? Sean asked, noticing his strange expression. Leo snapped out of his trance and shook his head. Nothing. I'm just surprised that a company as big as Thornton Industries could be losing money for months on end. Oh, that. Sean explained nonchalantly. It's actually pretty normal. The report says losses, but it could just be someone inside the company deliberately investing in failing projects. It's probably part of an internal power struggle. Once one side wins, they'll clean house and the losses will disappear. Just by reading the news, ordinary people like us can never see the full picture. Leo just grunted in response, his mind racing. A strange thought popped into his head. What if one day something really did happen to Isabelle's family? What if she went from being a wealthy heiress to an ordinary person overnight? Could she really handle a life like that? Leo and Sean spent some more time planning the studio strategy leading up to the holidays. They agreed that if they were serious about turning the studio into a full-fledged media company, they needed to move fast and get everything in place before the end of the year. Otherwise, paperwork and other processes would slow to a crawl during the holiday season. When they finished, Leo glanced at the time and was surprised to see it was already past 1 o'clock. They'd completely missed lunch. The meeting had gone quicker than he'd expected. All right, Sean, let's stick to the plan for now. And please, think about the recruitment idea as soon as you can. Sean nodded, his expression unreadable. Leo left Sean's office and was heading back to his own to get Isabelle for lunch when his phone rang. He was surprised to see Miles's name on the caller ID. They hadn't talked much since the dinner with Jian Zhang. Now that Miles was calling him out of the blue, Leo felt a flicker of concern. He answered, and Miles's cheerful voice came through the line. Leo, my man. Happy New Year. Cut the crap. What's up? Why are you calling me? Nothing special. It's just, you know how we always get together on New Year's for dinner and then an all-nighter at the gaming lounge? I know you and Kevin both have girlfriends now, so I was just calling to see if we're still on for dinner this year. You guys can bring your ladies. My treat. Miles's words made Leo pause. He'd completely forgotten. For years, the three of them, him, Kevin, and Miles, had a tradition of getting together on New Year's Day for a meal and a gaming marathon. It was a ritual they'd kept since middle school. Between the studio and Isabelle, it had totally slipped his mind. A pang of guilt hit him. I'm in, he said, but I don't know about Kevin. I'll call him and ask. No worries, man, I'll call him. Miles was about to hang up, but Leo stopped him. Hold on. Miles, did I hear you right? You said it's your treat? Did you hit the lottery or something? I was just about to tell you to sign up for an online course on social media management, so you could come work at the studio. Miles laughed sheepishly. That's okay, Leo. I know you and Kevin are making bank with the studio, and you want to help me out, but I also know I was never as smart as you guys. I'm not cut out for that brainy stuff. After I started college, I joined a martial arts club. You know, I went to that combat school for a while. Anyway, I met some upperclassmen there. One of their families owns a dojo teaching self-defense classes. He got me a job as an instructor. They're paying me $25 an hour, and I'm working 15 to 25 hours a week now. A dojo? Leo was surprised. Miles had spent years at that school, and it was the real deal. He had learned not only kickboxing, but also some foreign fighting styles. Leo had always figured those skills would never be useful. He never imagined they'd actually pay off. Damn, kid. Good for you. Thanks, man. I've been working there for a month already. I just got paid yesterday, so dinner's on me tonight. You, Kevin, and the two sis-in-laws. Leo agreed, and they hung up. He had just put his phone away when he saw Mark Zhang walking toward him, looking a little uncomfortable. Mark leaned in and whispered, Leo, you should probably go check on your office. While you and Sean were in your meeting, Isabelle bought a ton of plants. She put a bunch in your office, and then one on every single one of her desks. The three of us tried to help her, but she refused. She said she didn't want to interrupt our work. She carried all those pots in one by one. I got tired just watching her. Leo glanced around and noticed for the first time that every workstation did indeed have a new plant, adding a touch of life to the otherwise plain office. A warmth spread through his chest, mixed with a pang of concern. She had carried them all in by herself. He looked at Mark, a hint of disapproval in his voice. Mark, it wouldn't have taken you guys that long to help her. Mark gave a wry smile. Leo, you misunderstand. Of course, I wasn't going to let her do all that by herself. I told her that, but she said, he trailed off, and a new voice finished the sentence in Leo's mind. She told us not to stop working. She said we had to hurry up and make money for you, so you'd have enough to marry her sooner. Hearing Mark's words, Leo froze, an indescribable emotion swelling in his chest. In his mind's eye, he could vividly picture Isabelle, standing before Mark and the others, her expression cool, but her words full of purpose. Don't stop working. You need to make money for Leo, so he can marry me sooner. Until that moment, Leo had never seriously thought about marrying Isabelle. It wasn't that he didn't want to. It was just that in the back of his mind, he was acutely aware of the massive gap between his current status and the Thornton family. To talk about marriage at this stage felt like a fantasy, and Leo wasn't one for indulging in unrealistic dreams. He had never allowed himself to imagine a future where Isabelle was his wife. He never knew. All this time, she had been thinking, when is Leo going to marry me? A sharp, sweet ache pierced the softest part of his heart. He kept his face neutral, clearing his throat. I get it, Mark. Leo, you're a lucky man, Mark said wistfully, to have a girlfriend who's always thinking about when she can marry you. Leo didn't reply. He just walked quickly toward his office. When he pushed the door open, he was greeted by the sight of a room transformed. It was filled with greenery, like a small garden. Isabelle was standing by his desk, a faint smile on her lips as she watered a vibrant pothose plant. Her forehead was dotted with tiny beads of sweat, a clear sign of her earlier efforts. Leo stood there for a moment, watching her, his heart overflowing with a tender affection. He walked over, gently took the watering can from her hand, and set it aside. You must be exhausted, he said softly, his eyes full of concern. Isabelle lifted her chin and shook her head. Not tired? Yeah, right. It's freezing today, and you're sweating. Why all the plants, all of a sudden? Your office was too plain. I want to make it prettier, so you'll be in a better mood when you work here. His heart skipped a beat. Then why didn't you let Mark and the others help you carry them? You moved all of this by yourself. Isabelle narrowed her eyes, her tone nonchalant. They were busy. I didn't want their help. They were afraid I, the boss's wife, would dock their pay, so they didn't insist. Really? Leo raised an eyebrow. If Mark hadn't told him the full story, he might have actually believed her. Seeing his skeptical look, Isabelle nodded earnestly, not a hint of guilt on her face. Really? I never lied to you. Oh, because I just heard from Mark that you specifically told him not to stop working. Said something about them needing to help me make money faster, so I can marry you sooner. The calm expression on Isabelle's face vanished, replaced by a blush that spread rapidly across her cheeks. She bit her lip, puffed out her cheeks, and muttered, Mark is a bad person. We should cut his pay. Seeing her adorable pout, Leo chuckled. Mark works for our studio, not for your family like Lester. You can't just cut someone's pay for something like that. But that's not the point. The point is, are you really always thinking about when I'm going to? Before he could finish, Isabelle shot her hand up and clamped it over his mouth. Don't say it, she stammered, her face crimson. I was just, she trailed off, unable to form a coherent sentence. But her true thoughts came crashing into his mind. I just want to marry you sooner, that's all. Leo's body trembled. He had to fight the overwhelming urge to pull her into a tight embrace right then and there. But he couldn't. It would be too suspicious. He decided to drop the subject. Well, work is pretty much done for the day. Let me take you to lunch. What do you feel like eating? And where do you want to go this afternoon? I want to see a movie. He knew her well enough to understand that by skipping his first question and answering the second, she was leaving the choice of food up to him. All right, let's go to the mall. We can grab a bite there and then catch a movie. Okay. Just as he was about to say something else, he got a text from Miles. Leo, I talked to Kevin. He's in, and he's bringing Clara. 7 o'clock tonight. An address followed. Leo put his phone away and started packing up his things. By the way, he said to Isabelle, Miles invited us to dinner tonight. Kevin and Clara will be there too. MHM. New York City, Thornton Industries chairman's office. Richard Thornton stared at the news articles on his computer screen, all about Thornton Industries' recent project losses and the stack of compensation documents waiting for his signature. His expression was thunderous. He took several deep breaths, forcing down his rage before speaking in a low, dangerous voice to his secretary, Rochelle. Rochelle, explain this to me. How did so many projects end up in the red? What are these project managers doing? And not a single one of the board members noticed any of this beforehand. Sir, it's because the managers in charge of these projects report to... Before Rochelle could finish, Richard grabbed the water glass from his desk and hurled it against the floor. Smash! The glass shattered, sending shards flying. One piece sliced through Rochelle's stocking, and a thin line of red bloomed on her ankle. Richard didn't even notice. "Don't you dare tell me that every single one of these managers works for Sharon," he roared. "You'd better think very carefully before you answer me. I recognize several of these names. If I'm not mistaken, Leo Howard and Ethan Yates work for Mr. Walsh, do they not?" Rochelle flinched, startled by his outburst. But years of working for him had taught her to suppress her fear. She bit her lip and said quietly, "My apologies, sir. It was an oversight in my investigation. I will re-verify who each of these managers reports to immediately." Richard sneered. "Don't bother. By the time you figure it out, the company will have lost even more money. Send a notice to all the board members. Meeting in 2 hours. I want to see for myself who is trying to watch me fall." "Richard, if there's nothing else, I'll be heading out. I know you're stressed about these losses, but there are some things you need to address first." "Richard, old friend, you know I'm nearing retirement. I'll support whatever you decide, but this wasn't on me. You're barking up the wrong tree." "Richard, the point is, you need to come up with a solution for these projects, and fast." "Mr. Thornton." Richard Thornton watched as the board members filed out of the conference room, each offering a few parting words. When it was finally just him and his secretary, Rochelle, a wave of exhaustion washed over him. Before the meeting, he had been convinced that a few board members had simply been negligent. But after 2 hours of discussion, the reality was 1,000 times worse. Several of the failed projects were overseen by people his wife, Sharon, had personally promoted. The rest were managed by people under other board members, but in every single case, Sharon had involved herself to some degree. She didn't have the authority, but everyone, from the board members to the project managers, had given her leeway out of respect for her position as his wife. In the end, all roads led back to Sharon. The meeting he had intended as a reprimand for his board had turned into a trial of his own judgment. Several members used the opportunity to voice long-held frustrations. "Richard, I know you love your wife, but the fact is she is not suited for a frontline role in this company. What's more, her due date is just a few months away. I believe we should temporarily replace her. It would be the wisest decision for the company, for you, and for her." The suggestion was immediately seconded by nearly half the room. Richard neither agreed nor refused. He simply said he would consider it. He sat there, rubbing his temples, then turned to Rochelle. "Rochelle, tell the driver to wait for me downstairs. I'm going to the hospital to see Sharon." "Yes, sir." He sat for another moment before heading to the elevator. He had no idea that as soon as he was gone, Rochelle found a secluded spot and made a call. "Mrs. Thornton, just as you predicted, he neither agreed nor refused the suggestion to remove you. He just had me call the driver. He's on his way to see you at the hospital." An hour later, Richard Thornton stood outside the door of a VIP hospital room. He took a deep breath before pushing it open. Sharon, who was lying in bed, looked up with a gasp of surprise. She immediately threw back the covers and, supporting her large belly with one hand, walked lovingly toward him. "Richard, you're here. Don't get out of bed. Lie back down," he said, a note of urgency in his voice. But Sharon just smiled. "Oh, I'm not as fragile as you think. What brings you here during the day? Is work finally slowing down?" She spoke while gently stroking her stomach. "Sweetheart, look, Daddy's here to see us." Looking at her and her swollen belly, the anger that had been simmering inside Richard all day vanished. The words he had planned to say, about her needing to step back from the company for a few months, died in his throat. So what if she had run a few projects into the ground? Her intention was only ever to help him, to share his burden. Besides, she was less than 2 months from her due date. Bringing this up now would only cause her unnecessary stress. The doctor had warned him that women at this stage were emotionally vulnerable. What if she developed postpartum depression? He gritted his teeth. He wouldn't tell her. He would handle all of it himself. His decision made, a sense of peace settled over him. He smiled, bent down, and pressed his ear to her stomach. With a gentleness he hadn't shown even to Isabelle in years, he murmured, "Hey there, little one. Daddy's here." The ruthless titan of industry never would have imagined that everything, all of it, was part of Sharon's plan. "Want some popcorn?" Leo asked, holding their movie tickets. He pointed to the concession stand, fully expecting the little foodie beside him to jump at the chance. But Isabelle shook her head. "No, my hand will get dirty. So, we can wash them later." "No," she set her little face, absolutely refusing. Yet when she looked at other people holding tubs of popcorn, her eyes screamed, "I want some." Leo didn't get it, but he let it go. Soon, it was time for the movie to start. He led her into the dark theater and found their seats. As the movie began, a quiet hush fell over the audience. Isabelle was completely focused on the screen, but her hand found his in the darkness. Leo didn't think much of it, turning his attention to the film. But after a few minutes, he realized something was wrong. Why did his hand feel so warm and smooth? He glanced over, his eyes slowly adjusting to the dim light. His pupils contracted. At some point, Isabelle had unzipped her long down coat. Underneath, she wasn't wearing pants. She was wearing a pair of those fleece-lined leggings that looked like sheer stockings. And his hand was resting directly on her thigh. His heart skipped a beat. He instinctively tried to pull his hand away, but she pressed it firmly down. She turned her head slightly, and in the faint glow of the screen, her eyes held a mix of shyness and mischief. "Don't move," she whispered in his ear. Her voice was cool and collected, but the warmth and silkiness of her skin under his palm sent his heart into a frantic rhythm. He was absolutely certain this was a deliberate, soul-stealing attack. Leo tried to calm himself down, taking a deep breath and forcing his attention back to the movie. But with his hand pinned to her thigh, his heart hammered against his ribs, making it impossible to ignore the electrifying sensation. Isabelle clearly sensed his tension. A tiny, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips. She kept her eyes on the screen, but her hand remained firmly on his, her coat draped over them, concealing his transgression. She looked for all the world like nothing was happening. It took Leo a full minute to process the situation. So that's why she wore the long coat and boots today. This was the plan all along. Damn it, he thought, trying again to retract his hand. Trying to test a good man with a thigh? Who does she think I am? He scoffed internally. But then he realized his hand wasn't listening. It had a mind of its own. Well, I've already touched it. Might as well touch it a little more. Just for a second. That thought echoed in his mind on a loop. And so, his hand remained on her thigh for a solid half hour. The movie played on, but Leo couldn't have told you a single thing that happened on screen. Isabelle, for her part, just watched the film with half-lidded eyes, tacitly permitting his exploration. The only reaction she gave was a slight tremor that ran through her body when his fingers occasionally strayed a little too high. It wasn't until the credits rolled and the house lights were about to come up that Leo finally, silently, withdrew his hand. Click! The lights flooded the theater. Leo looked down at his hand with a profound sense of regret. Traitorous hand. Absolutely no self-control. He had sat through an entire movie and absorbed nothing, completely preoccupied with the feeling of her skin. It was a classic case of the little head making decisions for the big one. He stole a guilty glance at Isabelle. Just then, the couple sitting next to them got up to leave. The guy's lips were swollen and red, and the girl's lipstick was smeared. They had clearly spent the entire movie making out. Most importantly, the guy turned to the girl and said with perfect composure, "Lulu, that was a pretty good movie." The girl just blushed and hurried him out of the theater. Seeing them leave gave Leo an idea. He cleared his throat and said, "That guy is such a hypocrite. Look at his lips. He obviously spent the whole time kissing his girlfriend, and he still has the nerve to say the movie was good." Isabelle turned to him, a sly, knowing smile on her face. "Is that so? Well, was the movie good?" "Of course it was good. Are you questioning my integrity? Don't think that just because you held my hand on your thigh, I wasn't paying attention." "I'm not that kind of guy," Leo said, his bravado completely unfounded. Isabelle just nodded slowly. "Then tell me what you thought of it." It's hard to say. From my perspective, the ending for the main character and the female lead was pretty great. They're definitely going to live happily ever after. Question mark. Isabelle's expression turned strange. Seeing her reaction, Leo faltered. "What, you don't agree? That's fine. 1,000 viewers, 1,000 Hamlets, right? It's normal for us to have different interpretations." Isabelle opened her mouth, then closed it, hesitating. But we were watching a sci-fi movie. There was no female lead. Leo was floored. Impossible. How can there be no female lead? At the end, I clearly saw a man and a woman walking off together. Because the main character has dissociative identity disorder, Isabelle explained, pressing her lips together to keep from laughing. That was his own imagined female personality. Leo held his breath and instinctively unzipped his jacket. Damn, why is it so hot in here? He sat in stunned, awkward silence for what felt like an eternity before finally rubbing his nose and looking away. "Okay, you got me," he muttered. "I wasn't paying attention to the movie at all. Too busy feeling up your leg." By the time they left the theater, it was already past 6. The mall they were at was still a good distance from the restaurant Miles had booked. They called Lester right away. The snow had been falling for nearly a full day. Even with the city's snowplows working around the clock, the low temperatures had turned the roads into sheets of ice. The driving conditions were terrible. A trip that should have taken half an hour took the veteran driver nearly an hour. It was already past 7 when they arrived. As they got out of the car, Isabelle mumbled, "I think we're late." "I'm so sorry, Mr. Yeager. The roads were just awful. I was afraid to go any faster." Leo waved him off. "Don't apologize, Lester. She was just making an observation. We're just meeting Kevin and the guys. A few minutes late is no big deal." Still, a guilty look lingered on Lester's face. In truth, the road conditions weren't that bad. He'd driven for the Thornton family for years and had seen it all. But he wasn't as young as he used to be, and his own body couldn't guarantee both speed and safety on roads like these anymore. After saying goodbye to Lester, Leo and Isabelle walked into the restaurant. Though not a high-end establishment, it was one of the most famous hot pot places in Crestview, and it was packed. Isabelle's beauty was, as always, a showstopper. Combined with her unique, cool aura, her entrance turned more than a few heads. "Leo, over here." Miles, sitting at a table by the window, spotted them and jumped up, waving them over. They looked and saw that Kevin and Clara were already there.